this special meeting of the Waterbury Selectboard to order for Tuesday, February 17th, 2026. Our first order of business is to approve the agenda. Is there a motion?
I move to approve the agenda with an amendment on consent to add a second-class liquor license and tobacco license for Village Market. Second.
All right, motion by Kane, second by Mike to approve the agenda as presented with the addition of a second-class liquor and tobacco license for Village Market. Is there any further discussion on this? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, agenda is approved. That brings us to the consent agenda. We now have 4 items on this. So the minutes of our last special select board meeting on February 11th, tobacco and tobacco substitute licenses for Wesco, second-class liquor license for Wesco, and second-class liquor license and tobacco license for Village Market. Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Who wants it? All right. Motion by Tori, second by Roger to approve the consent agenda. Is there any questions or discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, we've approved the consent agenda. This brings us to public comment. Social norm throughout the night. If people are in the waiting room, just tell me because I'm the Zoom host. Public comment is an opportunity to speak about anything that is not on the warned agenda. I will note that we do have Stanley Wasson as well as the Randall Meadow bond vote on the agenda for discussion this evening. But if anyone would like to speak about anything else, you can have up to 5 minutes now. If you need more time, I'm happy to schedule you for a future meeting. For folks in the room, we ask you to come up to the table and say your name. Is there anyone in the room or online who would like to speak on public comment? Mike.
I'll be brief. I just want to thank all the members of the Rotary. We had pie for breakfast on Saturday, and I think we had a record for, at least in the most recent years, of 169 pie eaters. And I just want to thank the Rotary for all their hard work and stuff like that. And secondly, wearing the colors, I have to thank all our Olympic athletes for how dedicated that they are, especially, I think we've had 5 Vermonters out of all the medals the United States have won. 5 Vermonters have won medals. So here to the great athletes of Vermont and the United States.
Thanks, Mike. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on public comment? In the room or online? Okay. Not seeing anyone, I'll continue on as we have a busy agenda this evening. So our next agenda item is to debrief our special meeting that we had last week on February 11th and talk about next steps for the Stanley Wasson property, and also consider extending the option to purchase agreement with the state of Vermont. So thank you to everyone who was able to attend that meeting, or in person or online. Again, I think this is our time as a board to talk about next steps and where we go from here. Does anyone want to kick it off? Roger?
Yeah, again, I want to thank everyone that participated, particularly the civil tone that was maintained throughout the meeting. I think that's really important for informational meetings like that. And I think it was, I was the one that pushed having this meeting, despite a fairly heavy workload as reflected in tonight's agenda. But I think it's important to get the input, and I think we did get a lot of good constructive concerns on both sides. And I guess my takeaway was that people would like to see more due diligence. I think that most of that due diligence is built into the pre-development agreement, but there may be some items on the pre-development agreement that need further attention based on the comments that I received both during the meeting and afterwards. In particular, the status of the subdivision, the timing of both the marketing and traffic studies, and see, I mentioned the due diligence, and then, I think also the follow-up, on part of the town. This is gonna be a very significant development. We need to make sure that we've got the staffing to support it. So I think, those things need some attention before we move forward.
Thanks, Roger. Other questions or comments from board members? Lori?
I think one of the things that I took away from that meeting were a lot of people have questions that cannot be answered until we move forward with the agreement and that the company is able to perform their due diligence period. I think to ask the company to move forward without the signed agreement and spend that money is extremely unfair. They've been very patient with us for a long time. And I think it would make sense to take the next step just to be able to learn a lot about, a lot of the issues that were brought up, and without the signing of that agreement, we can't find solutions or learn the full extent of those problems, that were brought up during the meeting. Right, 2 cents.
Mike?
I just want to bring up, I've heard this from a number of people. There was concerns over, the pre-development agreement, with the fact that our option expires before the end of the pre-development agreement. And I think the concern there would be, is the town gonna go ahead with purchasing the property without the full extent of the pre-development agreement going forward? It's my impression, and any of the board member, Woody, et cetera, can correct me. I would think that if we're at the end of the option period, that we would probably be able to have an extension to that option to let do construction, continue their due diligence on issues, because we don't want to go and buy this property if it's not looking like the project might not be done. Just not a good thing. So unless anyone's impression is different, I just wanted to make that clear. Thanks.
Sorry. Other comments or reflections from board members? Roger?
I think the other thing that we have under this is consideration of extending the option to purchase agreement. As Mike said, it is due to expire. I'd be in favor of extending it.
Okay,
I would also be in favor of extending the timeline.
Let's see, when are the pre-development?
The state. Agreement. Purchase agreement for insurance.
other questions or comments from folks? So speaking for myself, not as chair, but as a board member, again, thank you to everyone who came out. I think it was great to get more input, to have an opportunity to share the pre-development agreement publicly. As has been said, I think there's still some healthy cleanup that needs to happen, and owing to the length of this agenda, I don't think it happened before tonight. I'm gonna be stepping off the board before this happens again. I would just encourage whoever will be on the select board. I think this is a worthwhile project that the town has worked really hard with on advancing. I think a pre-development agreement is giving time again for due diligence and consideration. But I just want to say that I think it's worth investigating further. I think this board is noting that there is going to be turnover and folks want to weigh in. I think just to name, like, there's the opportunity that we could just vote on this tonight. And I think that's maybe not what we're coming to the table with. I'll say there's varying thoughts on this board on what the right call is right now, to say, do you just do a thing while you're in office, or do you wait and give the new board time? So I just want to acknowledge, like, that's been a dynamic that's happening. So even if we're not voting on a pre-development agreement tonight, I would just note that there has been work and effort put into this. To me, it is still a really worthwhile proposal. And then again, as was noted, the option to purchase agreement with the state of Vermont is just, again, something that can be extended. So I think that would be an option That lets us say we want to continue moving forward with this. We don't want the new board to struggle getting this on an agenda before April, which is probably going to be their first meeting and organizational meeting. But note that that's moving towards keeping this project going. So those are my thoughts. Back to facilitating. Do other board members have questions or comments? Kane?
Would you entertain a motion to extend the purchase agreement?
Yep.
I move to extend purchase agreement.
Second.
Is there a, I guess I was gonna follow that up with a question of, is there a specific timeline state needs?
The agreement was extended to the end of the year.
Got it. Okay,
December 31st.
understood.
I second that motion.
Are you offering a new?
Nope, I didn't know what
Just
state
whatever
required,
the
yeah.
state would allow us
Right.
to extend by.
Okay, motion by Kane, second by Mike to extend the motion. We haven't given a date. I have it up in front of me. I do think it says, so I guess I'll just screen share for public transparency. This is posted under the materials for this meeting. See if I can do it. How we do? Yep, hold on one second. It's pretty hard to do the tech and the facilitation. And I was not able to offload either of them prior to the meeting, for which I apologize. Alrighty. Okay, so noting this is the option to purchase with the state of Vermont for the parcel we're discussing here. Woohoo! This has already been signed. Extend until April 1, 2026, unless sooner terminated or extended in writing. Is anyone aware of any extensions, or is that our current motion? So we have a motion and a second, so we can talk more about this and ask questions, but I'm happy to scroll through this more, but just wanted to pull it up. I had a question. Chris?
The other night, my intention wasn't derail this process, and I had no inconceived, knowledge or I didn't suspect that that was the final draft. I was just pointing out the fact that there seemed to be a disconnect between what, the gentleman from Dew was talking about versus what was handed to us. Pointing that out to make sure that, and I understood that probably there was gonna be a final review. It looks like this April 1st, 2026, change represents that eliminating that overlap between what Dew's expectation was of 18-month due diligence versus the way the contract was originally drafted, correct?
Yeah, I think we're talking about two things, and I'll just acknowledge that's kind of the miss what's happened. So there was like two sets of deadlines. There was a set of deadlines in the proposed pre-development agreement. This option is the town of Waterbury's option with the state of Vermont to buy this parcel, which is already exists and can be extended and needs to be. And I think in both cases, there's questions of
With the-
timing
with
and alignment.
approval from the state, obviously. Well,
Correct.
so this isn't the pre-development agreement between Dew.
This is the purchase option.
I apologize. But to my point, yeah, the other contract, there was, I didn't suspect that it was final draft, but, because there was too many discrepancies in it. And, I don't know if at the end of the day, the final draft is put forward for either this or reconstruction and development, agreement that the public will have a chance to review it as well before it's signed, or is that just the process of the select board to sign off on that? Because if there's any other questions or concerns that might come up that, you know, the new board or won't see or notice, somebody from the public may have something to add to that may be substantial, right?
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And I'll just say, so in the materials posted for this meeting, we didn't repost the development agreement. I haven't made any edits. I don't know if any other board members edited a version to bring here tonight, but I think we do still know it's draft, and the goal of releasing it publicly was to let folks look at it and be able to make those edits and comments. This purchase option, this is a copy of the already signed option, again, posted for this meeting, if we want to consider extending it. Yeah, good questions. And I guess, Woody, if it's okay, you have met with the state about this, and I don't know if you can just.
I have not met, but it's my understanding they have approved the December 31st, 2026 date.
Okay. So based on your understanding, the state is okay extending this option to purchase to December 31st. I see Amy online unless there was a board member with a note. Go ahead, Amy.
That was one of my questions to make sure they're okay. I also wanted to make sure, are there any other implications to delaying? So I definitely am just barely reading this, but where I'm seeing permits and things of that nature, there's an expectation that some of those things would be obtained within that option period or option date. So I didn't know if you folks had already a clear understanding of any implications by extending the date, or if there are any.
My understanding is to give the next board more time to do that review. I think acknowledging that expiring at April 1st without having figured that all out, this is something in place and we want to continue that runway is my understanding.
Yeah, no, I heard my apologies. I didn't ask correctly. So I'm talking more about, are there any legal implications based on the current agreement if it's not agreed to by the state? Are we gonna miss opportunities to get necessary permitting or other things if they don't give us that particular runway we're looking for? I understand the reason and I appreciate that actually.
Yeah, Roger?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any scenario whereby the town would be in a position to agree to purchase the property before April 1st. So I think it's necessary for us to just extend this option. Again, this is just an option. It's not a commitment on anybody's part. Just an option for the town to purchase the parcel.
Okay, thanks.
I want to go back and clarify. We had a motion by Kane, second by Mike to extend the option. Do we want to redo that with the December 31st, 2026 date?
It can also be amended. So but I can amend it myself, I guess.
Okay. Do you want to do that?
I'll make a friendly amendment to extend to December.
Okay, so currently discussing for December 31st. Martha, you have that as
said in the first place.
okay.
Yeah, I was actually gonna suggest that you contemplate extending it for a full year to April of 27. Because, you're gonna want to, the pre-development agreement is gonna need to be renegotiated in terms of what those timeframes are. DEW has talked about wanting a year time to do their work, so if you're to make sure that the town doesn't have to, one, to extend the option again, and two, allow DEW the time to do their work if they want a year. And one of the first two things. The option only is to extend the date, so that would just give DEW more time to make, and it would also give the town time to make sure that the subdivision and documents are all in place and the rest of it that apply for redevelopment.
Thanks, Martha. Tori and then Mike and then Robin.
I agree with Martha, because what we heard was DEW wants like an 18-month period, so sorry, I'm thinking about if they want an 18-month period, then that would be more like assuming it got signed on in March, like at the first meeting of the new select board, that's September 2027, and we wouldn't want to purchase from the state until they're done with their pre-development stuff. So it's almost like we should do December 31st, 2027, see, with the state option, if they'll go with it.
And Mike, then Roger.
I agree with what Martha is saying. Although I don't think the state is gonna pull the plug on this for any reason. You know, if we had to, we're negotiating with Dew and they needed a little bit more time, I think we would get that. So I think Martha's point is very, very capable. Maybe it's just something that we could not have to do this another time.
Roger?
I don't disagree, but I also think, that sometimes if you're looking for an agreement, you have to consider both parties. The state has agreed to extend it till December 31st. They have not necessarily agreed to extend it for another 18 months. If we want to extend it, before it, lapses without much of an argument, I think it's smart to, go with what they've already agreed to, and then I believe we've already extended this. My understanding is that the state would like to see this happen, and that, if it is moving forward, they will extend it again. I just don't think we want to pick a legal fight right now on this issue. So I'm gonna stick with, the motion as, it's been presented.
Tori Van King?
No, I completely agree with Roger. I just think we meet the deadline that the state has set forth.
The state has already signed December 31st.
Great. Okay, so the state has already signed for December 31st of this year. Is there further question? So again, the motion on the table right now is to, as a town, match that extension that the town has, or excuse me, state has granted through December 31st.
Is there paperwork that the state has signed saying? Okay, do we have copies of that paperwork that we could also sign, assuming the board passes this motion?
Yeah, the attorney said we didn't believe the board needed to sign it, actually, it could be signed by the manager.
Okay.
But yes, I can, virtually, it says
A town
this with it.
Right. Other questions or comments? Do you want to specify in the motion that we're authorizing the interim municipal manager to sign for clarity?
Yeah.
All right, I'm seeing nods from Queen and Mike. Is there other questions or comments on this? Yep, go ahead.
I'm sure. I just want to say thank you very much for putting a pause on this decision on the development agreement and not rushing through it, understanding that it's probably better to wait for the next board to come in and really kind of take a look at it, work with the town. So I thank you, Roger and Alyssa, for your comments, and thank everybody for all the work that you have done. But just to be clear, you're not signing anything on the pre-development agreement till the new development. Is that accurate?
There's not any motions in that regard right now, nope.
And it won't be until after town meeting?
Not that we're planning on, unless someone makes a motion out.
Four of us won't be signing anything.
Another meeting scheduled, that's what I'm trying to get clear.
Yeah, and I'll also note, we intentionally put this before the Randall Meadow hearing tonight, wanting to have clarity before we get to that item. So
All right.
you'll know very shortly, but we're not done with this agenda item yet.
Okay, thanks.
Is there any other questions or comments? So again, we have a motion to approve the option to purchase for this parcel with the state of Vermont to December 31st, 2026, and authorize the interim municipal manager to sign it. Is there any further discussion or questions from the board on this? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Stop this screen share, which might take a moment. Yay, it worked. Is there any other items on this debrief, next steps, questions, comments from board members or the public? All right, seeing none, we will move on to our next agenda item. Our next agenda item is recognition of staff work anniversaries. For folks who have been coming to select board meetings regularly, a big piece of our body of work for the past year has been working on the collective bargaining agreement with municipal employees, and we approved that in January. As a part of that, appreciation of union staff and recognition twice a year was part of it, and we wanted to sneak some of that in tonight while this board was here in place, noting this is one of 2 times a year. I think in an ideal world, we can do more outreach to the town employees to make sure that they're here. But again, we wanted to just have this today as an opportunity to acknowledge folks who work for the town, how long they've been with us, and their good work in general. So I'll start with just a quick overview and recognition of the employees and then open it up for comments from board members. Unless anyone wants to help me with the reading, which would also be Roger.
Glad to.
All right,
Are you ready?
yes.
Okay. For town employees hired in 2025 and 2026, Cheryl Casey, zoning administrator. Nanette Rogers, bookkeeper. Those with 1 to 2 years of service, Carl James, highway. 2 to 5 years of service, Kaya Neely, utility billing clerk. Anatha Parks, library.
Anate.
Anate. Thank you. Anate Parks, library. Neil Leitner, planner. 5 to 10 years of service. Kyle John Preeson, library. Dylan Haskins, highway. Judith Byron, library. Dan Sweet, assessor. Over 10 years of service. Michael Wilder, highway. Dustin Mabel, highway. Beth Elizabeth Jones, assistant clerk, currently our clerk. Michelle Boisvert, or is that Wasbert?
You got it right the first time.
Boisvert Wiley, library. Pam Pratt, administrative assistant. Andrew Abear, highway. Bill Woodruff, interim municipal manager. Thank you for your service.
Bill was a fun fact because I did a calculation of years of service and Bill was the highest at 35. So thank you, Bill, though he's not in the union. Thank you everyone for the round of applause, both in the room and online, and the celebrations online. I think that echoes the sentiment of the board, and just want to take this time to thank folks. Again, also acknowledge this is not all of our municipal staff. So we have a number of department heads. Edward for our utility district has staff. This is not covering everyone. And again, more to come on that, but we thought it was nice to at least have this opening acknowledgement of folks and their tenure and service with the town at this time. Do any other board members have comments at this time?
You said that.
Yes.
I think Alyssa said it all, you know, we sometimes, I think sometimes that the town staff doesn't think that we really value their work. Some do, but others may not. And I know just on my behalf, sometimes, you know, I just go, try to give them a smile, pat on the back, and I think that's really, really important that we recognize them, and I think Alyssa did a great job.
To quote a former municipal manager, none of us are plowing the roads or answering the phone, and we're very grateful to the municipal staff who do that work for us and help keep the town running. So thank you. Any other comments or questions on this item? All right, I will move on to our next item, which is a housing task force update. Housing task force chair Joe Camerata is here. Thank you, Joe. We acknowledge again and kind of wrap up and summation before town meeting. There have been some updates on some of the programs that this board worked on over the past year, and Joe offered to come in and provide some updates on their status ahead of town meeting. And I'll turn it over to you, Joe.
Thank you, Alyssa. I'd like to actually just talk about one program, and that's the Waterbury Housing Improvement Program. What I'd like to do is to give just a brief reminder of what that program was, what the program was that you approved, what happened since your approval process-wise, and then the results that we saw with it. Okay. So at its June 2nd, 2025 meeting, the select board approved $100,000 from the Waterbury Housing Trust Fund to launch the Waterbury Housing Improvement Program. The program was modeled after the state's Vermont Housing Improvement Program with Beacon Program. The goal was to help local property owners create new long-term rental units and increase the supply of affordable rentals in Waterbury. The program offers up to $30,000 per unit to bring a new rental unit onto the market. In return, the unit must be rented at or below 110% of fair market rent for Washington County. And that's a very abstract number, so that rent level for 2025 starts at $1,234 per month. Also, the renting household must make below 100% of area median income, get abstract number, but that means 77,000 for a one-person household and 58,000 for two person. The unit must remain at that level for the duration of the grant, just 5 years. The funds are paid out in 4 installments. They're tied to construction milestones, with the final payment being made only once a lease is signed, and the projects must be completed within 18 months. The select board authorized Downstreet Housing and Community Development to administer the program. Downstreet manages the application, the legal review of documents, the inspections, and the disbursements. After final payment, the town is responsible for monitoring rent levels and tenant eligibility for the. Okay, so that's what you should know because that's what you approved. Okay. So the agreement between the town and Downstreet was finalized in October 2025. And the application website went live on October 27th, immediately following the state's most recent vision period. We promised not to overlap the states and we waited for that to close before we moved. The Housing Task Force recommended a January 31st, 2026 application deadline to gauge early interest in the program. You don't want the money sitting on the. To support the program, the task force held a public meeting on November 8th. The meeting reviewed recent changes to ADU regulations, explained the programs, and walked the property owners through the permitting process. I'd like to recognize Cheryl Casey for her outreach efforts. It's not easy to get awareness around these types of things, and she helped to promote the program through social media and printed materials that were placed around town. Downstreet also shared the information on their newsletter and social media. So, not ready to leave, but as of January 31st, Downstreet received 8 inquiries from Waterbury residents, and 2 of those inquiries advanced to 4 applications. Both of those projects are located downtown. One is a new construction unit, and the other is a renovation of an existing space that was not previously rented and now will be brought up to code with the funds. Downstreet is currently finalizing the legal documents with both applications. The program funding was approved for up to 3 units. The January deadline, as I said before, was set by the Housing Task Force. We also know that based on historic building permit data, approximately 40% of permit applications are filed between March and May. So because of the seasonal pattern, there might be additional interest. We've learned several things from this first round. I mean, first of all, we learned there's real interest in inquiries to applicants. But, projects take time to go from awareness to improvement. Timing matters. Maybe it wasn't the best time for us to start this in November, but we wanted to get the money on the street to see if there was interest. And as I said before, most of the construction permitting happens to the spring. But I think probably the most important thing is just attracting the type of infill projects that we hope for. Both of these units being downtown are located in the downtown with infrastructure ready access. Unless otherwise directed, the Housing Task Force plans to discuss the future of the program at its meeting this Thursday. We will consider whether to extend the program timeline or recommend that the remaining funds be directed to another initiative. The task force appreciates the board's support in launching the initial Housing Trust Fund program. This was the town's first effort to use local dollars to directly create new housing units. We now have applicants and lessons learned. The next step is to determine how we define and scale this effort to improve the availability of housing for low to moderate and middle income households. Any questions?
Thank you so much, Joe. I really appreciate it. And we'll say part of this came from Joe coming to meetings and hearing what's even happened with that funding and saying, actually, there's been a lot happening. So wanted to have that out here in the public. Do board members have questions or comments for Joe? Kane?
I just wanted to express my appreciation, gratitude for yourself and for the rest of the task force. My idea was throw money at the problem. You took the money, turned it into a solution. So you have my undying thanks.
Other questions or comments from the board on this? Roger?
Yeah, I also wanted to thank Joe and other members of the task force for their work on employer-assisted, housing, and a project that, our, proposed, new economic development coordinator, will be implementing, with Core Power on a survey to assess the, demand for, medium income, housing for, workers in our, downtown, workforce.
Mike?
I too want to thank the whole housing task force, but mostly Joe. Joe's really taken a real leadership role in moving the task force along from ideas to implementation. I think it was really good. I think also they've been very concerned about the whole short-term rental situation, which I think was all concerned in Waterbury. Not that we want to prevent short-term rental, but we don't want short-term rentals to be a guidepost that affect other rentals and ownership opportunities. I think that's really important. I think, as a result of some of the task force work, other entities have sprung up that are looking at the housing problem. And we do have, we all have recognized that there is a housing problem and an affordability problem. But we all want to recognize that I think you're not being totally prescriptive in what you want to do, looking at housing, not just for low to moderate, low income folks, but low to moderate and market rate, folks. I think that's really part of addressing the problem, because it's not just folks that are making minimum wage or, slightly above. There are people making $75,000 to $125,000 a year who still can't get either rental or homeownership opportunities. And I wish your group a lot of, hopefully you'll have more success in the future, and I wish you all luck. Thanks.
Any other last questions or comments?
Just say that the task force, is really, it's a very good group of people. They have a very diverse background, and we have people on that are owners, we have people that are landlords, we have people that are developers, right? And I think that diversity helps us to flesh out different solutions and things. It's a great group.
I'll just add my own thanks to Joe, who again has just taken so much leadership in this and really helped drive data-driven and informed process. And then give a shameless plug that we have 2 items on the town meeting warning that also pertain to this, just to name that local option tax funds voted on in 2025 and approved by the select board in 2024 is the funding that's making it up. And there are 2 articles on the town meeting warning this year looking to just formalize that, to say this is what we've already had, but we would like to have voters formally approve this becoming a housing reserve trust fund, and using the money for that. So just say this program could continue as outlined with those things, but also just acknowledge it will be part of town meeting. Any other last questions or comments on this topic before we move on? All right. Thanks, Jeff. So it's 6:43 p.m., which is ahead of agenda time, but after the warm time for the public's information hearing, which means we are good to go. So I am going to formally open the public hearing for the Randall Meadow bond vote. This is a requirement of the bond vote funding. It's been warned in the Time Argus 3 consecutive weeks in a row on the same day. We are going to start off with an interactive video portion, which I have not tested the technology of, featuring the town's flood grant coordinator, Dana Allen, who couldn't be here in person today. So with hopes that the technology works, we're going to hope to kick off with the 13-minute video that is linked under today's meeting, and just appreciate your patience as we try and get that queued up with audio working. So that is what I will work on now. Okay. First screen share.
So this was interactive.
It's a voice. I think we heard like Dana was concerned about not that one. I do think I'm actually sharing the right thing. Gonna open it in a new tab, and thanks everyone, and I apologize for this. Okay, I'm gonna pause this and ask if someone online can unmute and let us know if you're looking at it and hearing it okay before we continue.
We are not seeing it.
Thank you, Anne. We're doing split screen in the municipal office and it's a little wild, so thank you.
Mhm.
I have two screens. Other things, there's a slide. Sorry, folks, and thanks for your patience. How are we doing now?
Can see it, but haven't, it doesn't look like you're playing it, so we can't hear it yet.
Excellent, that is indeed what we're doing, so I'm gonna play this as. All right. Let's hope we're there. All right, are we good?
It's coming in now, yeah.
Perfect.
So
All right,
can-
thanks everyone for the patience. Again, you can see from the bottom, 1306. I will turn it up and we will enjoy the presentation from Dana and then have times for question and comment after. Again, we have an hour scheduled for this so that folks have time to ask question and share their thoughts. I will try and make the Zoom as non-intrusive as possible. All right, let's.
No audio on our end.
Yeah. In display. Yay. Let's try it.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dana Allen. I work for the town of Waterbury as a contractor doing
Perfect.
grants management. I'm also on the planning commission, but I just want to make clear that tonight I'm speaking as a grant consultant for this project. And this project that we're going to be talking about tonight is the Randall Meadow Flood Resilience Project. This is a critical project for flood resilience and flood elevation reduction in the town of Waterbury that's been years in the making. And we're doing this presentation just to provide some background for the upcoming bond vote on town meeting day. So, why are we talking about this? Well, since 2011, at Tropical Storm Irene, we've had a lot of flood events. July 23, December 23, and July 24. It's impacted the same homes and businesses over and over. We've seen damages in downtown, Randall and Elm Street neighborhoods, South Main Street, Route 2, all over town, really. We've got damage estimates ranging from $2.8 to $12.9 million in damages to residences and businesses. We've also sustained a lot of municipal infrastructure damage. We thought Irene was a once-in-a-generation event, but since then, obviously, we've seen more flooding. And just to underscore this, this is kind of what we're looking at as far as floods in a, sort of a historical timeline. What was once in a century is now happening multiple times per decade. You see that 2011 flood with Irene, and then we had 3 more in rapid succession. So these are really increasing in frequency. It used to be a major flood maybe every 20 years. Now we're looking at that increasing in frequency. And so that's just increasing our damage. And we've got an opportunity to do some proactive planning and some mitigation for these events. This requires us to invest in this project proactively. We've got an opportunity to leverage community development block grant disaster recovery funding. We've been awarded $2 million. It's available now, and it's really one-time funding. So what is the solution that we're talking about? Well, it's the Randall Meadow project. It's basically a 48-acre site between the Winooski River and Randall Street. We're talking about lowering the elevation of the entire field, so removing about 100,000 cubic yards of material. The state has agreed to transfer this property to us so that we can restore about 40 acres of functional floodplain. So this is going to increase our natural flood storage capacity. It's going to absorb floodwaters, basically like a big giant bathtub. We'll get to suck up that floodwater temporarily and then release it slowly as the flood abates. We're also trying to maintain an existing recreational trail there to provide this long-term sustainable flood mitigation solution. And you can see from here, this is basically what we're looking at. So, the average across the entirety of the site is about a foot of elevation reduction. And then we've got a deeper area. I think we've seen all those photos of that high point in the field. That's about a 3.5 foot elevation reduction average. Some might be a little bit more, some might be a little less. But we're really talking about a lot of material over a huge area. So what is this project actually going to do? We're talking about reducing flood levels by 0.3 to 1 foot across about 7,000 feet of main stem Winooski River. So that green line there, that shows what about 7,000 feet from the project site upstream is. So
I'm pausing Dana's sped up presentation to say that we have the captions on for folks in the room because the audio is quiet. Are folks in the room doing better with those? And do we want to start again with the captions for folks in the room? Okay, I'm not seeing a need to go back, but they're on now and we will keep them on. And if we need to go back with captions, we can. Thanks again for your patience, everyone.
Really all through the downtown area, even past the Route 2 bridge. So we get a lot of benefit across a wide area. This benefits a lot of different zones in town. This could prevent first floor flooding in some extreme events, and it also reduces infrastructure damage and repair costs. And remember, every time this happens, those costs compound. It's not like it's a one-time $300,000 infrastructure damage. It's like unknown amounts of damage that happens each time. So, we're going to get a chance to protect 200 homes and 20 businesses, roughly, based on past damages estimates there. This is what I really like about this project here. We've got a really strong cost to benefit ratio. So essentially through our analyses, for every dollar invested, we get about $4.20 in benefits. That was done for the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. We had the strongest benefit cost analysis in that program for those resilience projects. So we've got a really strong project here. It's actually shocking that in that program we weren't chosen for funding. We are still an alternate in that program, and we're still holding out hope that some funding will come as a result of that. So that's part of our return on investment. But another thing that we're looking at is ecosystem services value. We're going to talk about this a little bit later, but we're looking at over $15 million in ecosystem services. So things like carbon and phosphorus sequestration, habitat restoration, and river function will be returned. We also get a lot of benefit in avoided flood damages. And avoided flood damages are essentially avoidance of damage to buildings. And so we've got anywhere from around $50,000 to more per structure across about 100 buildings. So that actually totals up to about $3 million. We'll see this in a later slide, but just to preface that, that's a huge amount of reduction. Again, that's an estimate. We don't know exactly what that is. It's hard to get your arms around this precisely, but that's a really good metric. And it just prevents this repeated repair and recovery expenses. And it protects our tax base and our property values. We're looking at fewer buyouts potentially if we can protect these homes. And just as some background here, we did actually do a quick estimate with some numbers provided to us by Crew for the July 23 flooding. This was submitted as part of this grant, but we saw estimates as low as 2.8 million and as high as 12.9 million across a variety of neighborhoods and structures for damages sustained during that time. So we really do have the potential for relatively high avoided damages if we get these benefits that we're projecting. So again, I want to talk about that ecosystem restoration services number of 15 million. This is important background. I mentioned carbon and phosphorus sequestration as well as other functions. It's that phosphorus sequestration that's actually really important for us here because that rolls us, or that basically sets us up for enrollment in the Clean Water Fund phosphorus reduction grant funding stream to essentially reduce phosphorus going into Lake Champlain as part of that total maximum daily load, the effort to reduce harmful algal blooms in Lake Champlain. Doing this project could potentially sequester a lot of phosphorus through sequestration of sediment, through vegetation growth, through soil binding of those phosphorus particles. That's not an insignificant amount of money. We stand to get anywhere close to $1 million potentially from that fund and others in the state. That's state money, that's ongoing. This bond vote and this grant that we've already gotten really set us up to say, listen, we can make this project a reality. We present that to these funders, this Clean Water Fund, and we say, listen, we've already lined up these ducks. Let's do this. We've got the guarantees. So that's why this bond vote is critical. That's also something I want to signal is that we're bonding for the full amount. We've already obtained $2 million. We have the chance to obtain more funding. So the likelihood of us as a town being on the hook for that full bond amount is actually likely very low. As I said, we've already gotten $2 million, so 45% of that. And again, we talked about these avoided building damages, but even if we look at that as a relatively conservative $3 million, if we spend this, 4.3 million, call it total for this one project, we avoid some amount of those building damages. And this project lifespan is projected to be 30 to 50 years. So that compounds over time. So say we have 5 more floods in that 50-year time period, that's potentially $15 to $20 million of avoided damages. So it's a one-time investment of $4.3 million, all in total cost. That's really good return. So project timeline, I know people have asked about this. This is very fluid right now, but we've gone through the application phase where we got the grants. That was very important. Now we're on to the award and setup phase. So we're trying to finalize this grant agreement, doing some background for that. Then we get into planning and procurement. So hopefully by February of 2027, we've got this environmental review process done. We've got our permitting lined up and we can start issuing bids, procure that in spring of 27. Then we move to construction phase, ideally in early summer of 27, full construction season there. And then project completion looking like 2028, so essentially a 3-year timeline. That's ideally, we've got 5 to 6 years depending on how you cut it with this grant, but if we do it in 3, then we get those project benefits even sooner. And this is a realistic timeline, with property transfer, permitting, etc. So the budget for this, as I mentioned, about $4.3 million all in. There's some administrative tasks here. A big portion of that is design at $100K and permitting at about $30K. Plus some archaeological and environmental review services. This is a site that's had a lot of use over time. It's got some contamination that we have to deal with in the soils. So we have to mitigate that. And then some compliance work that we have to do, but that totals about $500,000 over the course of this grant's life. Then we look at our construction phase tasks, and that's about $3.8 million total. We do have contingencies in here, 5% for each of these buckets. But the site work, the excavation is about $3 million. And essentially that's moving 100,000 cubic yards of soil. One important note on that, as this project moves forward, we're going to need to find places for that soil. So honestly, we're looking for places close to Waterbury, old gravel pits, quarries, large areas that can't be, streams, wetlands, things like that. But we're looking actively for places where we could potentially truck this material. So obviously pending soil examination, but this is a big part of it. So again, 3.8 million for construction phase, so we're about 4.3 all in. So why do we want to support this bond? We can basically guarantee the full project with complete benefits occurs. Now, we've got $2 million in hand. We could phase this project, right? Or we could do part of it. If we do part of it, we don't realize economies of motion. We don't realize economies of scale and scope. We also get reduced benefits. So say we did maybe 45% of that topographic reduction. I don't even know if we get 45% of the benefits. It's not exactly how hydrology and hydraulics work. But we definitely don't get the full benefit across that full 7,000 feet. We might not get as much flood reduction or flood elevation reduction as we're projecting. So really, I kind of look at it as like replacing the roof on your house, right? Like you don't rip off the old roof and then replace half and put a tarp up for the other half and just hope that rain won't come. You kind of do the whole project. You bite the bullet. You just make it happen. We've already made, half of this project essentially get funded. We just have to guarantee that we can find money for the rest of it. And that's the next important thing I want to talk about here. It's been my job over the past year and a half to raise awareness of this project and others in Waterbury, get a handle on the funding landscape and make sure that funders know what we're doing and line up for these projects. And so, like I mentioned, we have this clean water fund within the state of Vermont, phosphorus reduction fund primarily to clean up Lake Champlain and reduce those harmful algal blooms. There's also these enhancement grants that go hand in glove with these clean water fund grants. The important part there is phosphorus reduction. Our project has potentially very high phosphorus reduction, so it really sets us up as one of the largest, if not the largest, floodplain reconnection project in the state with the highest phosphorus reduction number potentially. We still have to do a lot of modeling for this, but we're on their radar. They know what we're doing. We've gotten, a lot of feedback from them, and I think that we're really lined up to get a good amount of additional funding, maybe up to $1 million out of those two pots of money. There's also that hazard mitigation grant program. That's a FEMA program. We are on their radar. We're an alternate. They know we're looking for money. We're in contact with Vermont Emergency Management, who's administering that fund on a monthly basis, if not more. They're probably super annoyed with me at this point, frankly, but we're on their radar. Same with the Lake Champlain Basin program. Smaller grants for implementation, but we've got an opportunity there. We're on the radar of the Whisper program, which is a grant program that goes hand in glove with the Clean Water State Revolving Fund loan program. So you can get natural resources projects funded if you do things like get a loan for a wastewater treatment plant upgrade. We've been in touch with a number of communities that are doing SRF loans. We've been in touch with the program administrator for Whisper. So we're on a lot of people's radars for money. They know what we're doing. And so closing that $2.3 million gap, maybe not completely, but in some substantial way, seems very doable to me. And I'm fairly pessimistic about this stuff. So I think we've set ourselves up well. If we phase this project or if we don't fully bond for this project and we kind of end up like stalling a bit, it sets us back years. The CDBG-DR funding is really the catalyst that we needed. So, hopefully we can guarantee that this full project will happen with this bond vote. I continue doing my job, get more money, close that gap, reduce the amount that we ultimately pay as a town, and then we actually get this project in the ground. So the other thing I want to note is that the CDBG-DR funding is one time, so this is our only shot at this pot of money, realistically. So we've leveraged it to the maximum that we can. This bond vote then allows us to fully leverage the entire scope, get the full benefits of this project as currently scoped, and go from there. I know that was relatively quick. Also, I'll recognize that I'm not in the room. I'm in a totally different time zone, like quite a different time zone. So showing up tonight in person, even via Zoom, wasn't feasible. So I do apologize for that, but I wanted to make the best effort here. So questions can be directed to my email, dana@fluidstateconsulting.com. I'm happy to answer email questions as best I can, or direct you to the right resource if I can't answer. So anyway, I hope this was helpful in understanding what this bond vote is about, what this project is about. And again, please do feel free to reach out. So thank you.
No. Oh. Trying to not record a YouTube commercial. So thanks everyone. No one wants this. Selectboard, yay. All right. Thanks, folks. I want to go through just a little more introductory baseline information that I'll screen share and that board members and Woody can speak to, and then note that we will have set time for questions and set times for comments and input for folks. Again, plenty of time on this agenda item. In terms of related files, I wanted to just pull up, well, I'll start with the bond vote. This is the annual town meeting warning for this year. Again, hope to see everyone March 3rd, 2026 at 9 a.m. However, if you show up early at 7 a.m. when the polls are open, you can vote on this. So I just want to be clear that what we're discussing here is ultimately something that will be voted by Australian ballot. So again, in the booth, absentee, whether you're present during the actual meetings of town meeting, it's Article 4, shall general obligation bonds of the town of Waterbury in an amount not to exceed $4,300,000, subject to reduction from receipt of available state and federal grants and aid, which is expected in at least the amount of $2 million, be issued for the purpose of creating flood storage capacity at Randall Meadow to reduce the impact of flooding for a significant portion of the town of Waterbury's downtown. I'm going to stop that share quickly. And then let's see if this works. So again, that's ultimately what we're here to discuss today is this bond that we're voting on. The other piece is the grant award letter for that $2 million that is referenced that we've already received and essentially why we are putting this to a bond. One screen. And just note that I cannot see what that's saying. Thumbnail is minimized. This is the award letter again from December of this year. Noting this is federal money and it's related to the 2023 disaster, the award, but more importantly, there's quite a laundry list of award conditions. And so this evidence of other resources is again really behind what this bond vote. So they're saying, yes, you have $2 million, but we need to make sure you can do this whole project. Even if you're going to go for other grants or hope to find funding in other places like Dana spoke to, we need to know you could do the whole project as described. So Dana spoke to, if this doesn't pass, what happened? There is potentially still the chance to do a reduced scope version of this with the $2 million. The recommendation is let's do the whole thing at once for some of the reasons stated in the presentation, economies of scale and the like. But just to say up front, again, that is the status in terms of why we're doing this bond for the full amount, knowing that we have hopefully at least this $2 million that will be seeking additional grant funding. Dana spoke to a variety of different resources. That's the last grounding information I wanted to say, but I wanted to give Woody and or select board members opportunities to share anything they want, and then we would do questions first and then comments for folks. Woody or board members, anything to add?
No, I've got the information.
Thanks, Woody. Roger?
I'll just note that during the informational meeting last week, a number of people indicated that they'd like to see this project move forward before the housing project. I think we're trying to look at doing things concurrently, but this I think is an important project to move forward for a number of different reasons that they pointed out.
And the last thing I'll just say is Dana's slides are online for this meeting and we can go to them if we need to, if folks have specific questions. Any other comments or groundwork laying from the board? All right. So it's 7:09 right now. Again, we have this scheduled till 8. I propose that we start with 10 to 15 minutes of questions. So if there's things we want to get clear on, and then again, we can just have open time for comments. Again, this is a public informational hearing, so that will all be recorded. We will have to submit these minutes as part of that laundry list of grant compliance to hopefully get this funding. Does anyone have any questions to start? Things to clarify, dig into, slides we want to go back and look at again? Not seeing any in the room. Anyone online? Yeah, come on up. Thank you.
Being that you're not going to crop that.
Great question. Does this mean you're not going to crop the land anymore? I do not have that information. Yeah.
The current farmer has a lease with the state owns the land.
Yeah.
The state will no longer own the land. we would not be property.
And I do believe the state didn't want to give us the option until their existing agreement with the farmer using it had run out. I think they had through whatever time and didn't renew it after that. I think it was in 2026. Is that right? But they said essentially we wouldn't even consider the town taking it over prior to us having met our agreement for that currently. Yeah, of course. I see a chat online and we'll note preference will be to hear folks, but I am going to pull this up right now. And reading, Tom G, you showed grant condition number 2 must be made by March 16th. Have any of those items been completed or in process? And feel free to repeat that. And Dawn, I'm seeing a note to repeat the question or the summary of the comment. So the last question we got was about if the land will be cropped, used for crop after this. We don't have a definitive answer, but we do not think so. Is that correct, Woody?
Yeah.
So we don't have a definitive answer, but we don't think so. And then this question in the chat is around the grant conditions. And just noting that we have started to make some progress on those. There's some compliance of HUD policies and procedures that we've approved at meetings earlier this month and last month. So there has been some work so far, but it's ongoing and not yet completed. I see Whitney next online, but let me see if there's anyone in the room. Yep, go ahead, Martha.
So the grade would be used first before you draw on the bond?
So Martha's question was, would the grant be used before drawing on the bond? And there was nods in the room. So yes, we would use the grant funding first before the bond. And also just note in general, this bond is authorizing an issue of that full bond amount. It's not actually issuing it. And again, I think I can speak for future boards and say the hopes would be to actually bond for a much smaller amount because of grants and other funding. Whitney is next online, and then I'll come to you in the room. Whitney said, how will the water be released as referenced to within the first few minutes of the video? I will go to the slideshow because I'm not entirely sure what we're talking about. Whitney, I don't know if you're present and can come off mute to elaborate on your first question.
Hi, thanks team for putting this together and continuing to explore options for flood mitigation. Yeah, Dana mentions within the first couple of minutes in the video that it's designed to accept water and then be slowly released as the floodwaters recede. And the slide he shows that there's a deeper dig in one area, like a bathtub he refers it to. I just wonder, how is the water going to, is there really a release to that water, or is that going to go down as the ground absorbs it? That was my first question.
Great. So for Whitney's first question in the room, I'm looking at slide 5 online. Does this enthusiastic speaking mean one of you want to speak to this question?
Runoff. There is no mechanism.
And well, in the study that I saw, it showed that it would be graded down towards the river. The reason for the more excavation in the part closer to the houses is that the field is actually built up there. You see that in the photos during the flood. That's in yellow is actually above part of the flood stage. And so that's why that part needs to be taken down at a higher level. But what I've seen is the plan is to put it on a grade. And again, all this hydrology work is part of what will be funded through the grant.
Great. So noting, we think maybe released isn't quite the right term. There's nothing mechanical. There's hydrology included in the study and some more detail from Roger and Woody. Thank you. Whitney has 2 more questions. The second was, would this area be mowed or allowed for wild growth? I'm not sure if that's been determined yet. Does anyone have any information?
whatever the design calls for.
So it would be part of the project design, but we don't have a answer at this point, Roger?
The town has entered into a 2-year agreement with the National Park Service's Rivers, Trails, and Conservation Assistance group to look at different opportunities to create new vegetation areas and recreational opportunities that would be consistent with the hydrology models. So they'll be working together with different people working on this over the next 2 years. And there are scheduled to be at least 2 large public forums to discuss what they come up with.
Thanks, Roger. The last question I'm seeing from Whitney is, will there be a cleanup plan for the area for all of the debris and objects that will inevitably float in and get trapped in that area? Anyone have anything to say on that?
I would assume we clean up unnatural debris. Stuff like that. I'm not sure about sediment. Woody debris. Whether it impeded the actual function of the design.
Are folks online able to hear Woody, or do I need to coach another interim municipal manager to yell?
Yeah, can you have him speak up? You really can't hear him.
Woody?
No,
Just-
it would move anything unnatural, propane tanks, plastics, tires, stuff like that. Any woody debris and sediment, if it was impeding the design of the field, that would be removed or altered as well.
Thanks, Woody. Next up, I had for questions, Harry Shepherd in the room, and then we'll go to you, Pete. Do you mind coming up just because the Zoom, we've already got comments. Thank you.
Thing that might be a clarification of what was discussed for the grant. I know that the grant language notes specifically that it is reimbursed expenses. There's talk about refinancing the base for that in order to advance the project, that hopefully we would get reimbursed. So just wanted to point that out.
Thank you. Noting that this is a reimbursement-based grant for eligible expenses. Pete, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. I just want to be clear that people understand the scope according to that 2013 study, that the up to 1 foot of mitigation for the 50-year level, which is an approximate level, I think somewhere around 421 feet. So that's not getting to Main Street or you know, the bulk of the flooded area. So I just want people, you know, before they vote on this, right, to understand exactly how they realize the mitigation and the savings according to that 2013 study. In addition, when they talk about 7,000 feet upstream, it's maybe about 1 to 2 inches of lowering of the river level. Again, according to that 2013 study. So I just want to be sure, because I think in some of the videos and what's been said in the past several months, there's some confusion and discrepancies between what's said and what the studies and the graphs actually say. So I just wanted to kind of clear that up. Thank you.
Thanks, Pete. Does anyone else have a comment or follow-up to that? All right. Other folks in the room, I see Chris has a hand up. And again, I'm noting we're tending toward comments, all of which is welcome. But if you have questions, great to start with those.
So as I said the other night at the board meeting of the fire station, my concern was about future development here in the downtown. The fact that this project, Randall Meadows project is only designed now to help satisfy the part of the flooding issue on Randall Street. To me, I think the project is designed woefully inadequate. I went out and grabbed my tape measure just to show the public what 4 inches of reduction looks like.
That's that much right there to a foot. That's that much right there. In order to achieve that, you gotta take out 100,000 cubic yards. Doing a little bit of math on that, if we allowed 20 trucks a day for 30 days, eight trips per truck. It would take 30 days to remove that 100,000 cubic yards. That's if you can find a place to dispose of it within a 1 hour cycle. So I know that when Steve Wilder used to haul sand from the Bolton pit to the town shed in Waterbury Center, the maximum he could do a day was 11 loads. That's being at the pit at 6 o'clock in the morning till they close at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So, in my opinion, we should be over designing this thing, not only to secure the 4 to 1 inch, which I think is laughable in the sense of doing any meaningful reduction in damage. And of course, you have to remember that storms that are being predicted, all of Dana's work, even though he's worked very hard at it, is speculative at best. We don't know what Mother Nature is gonna design for us or deliver to us. So in my opinion, if we're gonna enter into this project, so getting back real quick, I jumped off there. So that 5,000 cubic yards consists of about $1.5 million of that $4.3 million proposal. If you figure $150 per hour per truck, give them a two hour cycle, it's gonna eat at whatever, 1 hour cycle or 2 hour cycle. If it's 2 hour cycle, that extends the project from way more than 30 days. The more trucks you put on, I don't know if the town will accommodate more than 20 trucks a day, making 40 trips, 1 trip out, 1 trip back. That's all calculation that have to be designed into this project. So the worst case scenario on the cost of that removal of material, which in my opinion is the lion's share of the cost of this project, which would be the trucking. The cornfield is relatively nothing but silt. So it's either gonna be pushed up with big dozers real quick and loaded with loaders relatively quick. There's not gonna be I wouldn't think too many excavators unless they're just piling the material so the loader can dip into it. But I think, with the proper couple of machines, you're gonna be able to achieve removal of that material into piles and then load it into the truck, and the truck's
This is totally fine. Do you have a?
My point is, we should be going back to the drawing board here, and we should be looking to achieve at least a 2-foot minimum of water flood reduction, not only to assure that we're achieving the 4 inch to 1 foot, okay? Giving a variance of discrepancy in floodwaters and mitigating that field enough so that it accommodates further development in this downtown. I think we're gonna fall way short of our achieved goal with this current design that's in place. So just leave it at that.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate it. And to be clear, if you want to come back up with more, I just wanted to make sure we're in the portion, because again, this is time for questions and comments. So it seems like we're there. We'll transition over so we can take additional comments. I saw 2 select board members with hands up. I guess I will just say, speaking as not chair Alyssa Johnson, who's on the select board, I think the select board's been really interested in flood mitigation since I was first on the board before the 2023 repeat floods. I moved to town for a position that was created after Tropical Storm Irene. I never thought I was going to live through direct firsthand impact of flooding in Waterbury. And then I spent 3 weeks in this building doing follow-up response to folks. So I just say that because I think there's been actually really serious exploration of things like the study done after Tropical Storm Irene in 2013, looking at what are the viable alternatives. We picked that back up. We said, is there anything here that's worth going for? So I'm not here today to say I think this is the perfect solution or enough or doesn't need more design considerations, but I would just say, as someone who's been on the select board for a long time, we've been looking at what available options and funding are, and this is one that's moved forward. And so, again, for me, I think it needs more study, it needs more things. We have an opportunity to access federal resources to help do that. But again, I think there is a number of questions, and that's part of the goal today. Tori and Kane had hands, and then we're gonna just do open comment for anyone who wants to add 3 minutes each. Tori and then Kane.
I mean, you pretty much summed up my thoughts. It's just, the project may not be perfect right now as is, but to move forward and make it better, we do need to, hopefully, ideally pass this bond vote so that we have the opportunity to do so.
Kane and then Mike.
Yeah, all right, so part of the spending will go to design, 1. 2, 4 inches of flood reduction is the difference between your first floor and your basement. So, in the event of a major flooding event, and we have that 4-inch reduction, and someone doesn't need to replace their hardwood floors or anything on their first floor or all their furniture, it makes a unimaginable difference than if they just need to replace the things in their basement, especially those in the high flood risk areas who have moved their appliances out of their basement and onto their first floor. The achievements that we could see after this project is complete, we don't even know yet. We don't know what it looks like. We need the design to happen before we know what we're looking at. We need the bond to cover the research to figure it out. So the argument against doing this project or redesigning this project before we've even got it off the ground is, to me, ridiculous, because the impact that it makes, even small, is a huge difference to the people who own homes in the high flood risk areas.
Okay, Mike was next, and I do want to say, because Woody may or may not say it himself, when he came as Public Works Director for this year's highway budget, he said he had concerns. So I just want to say, Chris, that the amount of trucks traveling on Waterbury's roads and the fact that we redid our Main Street not a long time ago is certainly on at least some municipal staff's radar, and just wanted to say that publicly for Woody, if he doesn't want to say it himself. But when I came in and said, how are you doing as Public Works Director? Here's your budget for next year. He was upfront that it's a consideration. So not pretending to hide that, but wondering if we can manage it. Mike?
I'll be brief and kind of responding to the words that Chris said, to kind of somewhat share his concern. And I think it got crystallized. I think the board, it was a former A&R biologist, Rod Whitworth, who made some comments to us about the project. He said, yes, it will help in terms of your flood protection, but it will not totally stop flooding, and that's what we have to look at. It's something that, as Kane just said, yes, your first floor, elevation may not be impacted. You may still have a incident that you do have flood waters in your basement, but I think that's something that we almost need to deal with. It's not gonna, as Rod said, it's not gonna eliminate flood problems, but it will help with the problem, and I think that's where we are. I think we would have to put millions and millions of dollars more if we want to achieve a lot more reduction. So I guess I'm very much in favor. It's doing something to help protect the human.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. I see more hands, so I'm just noting for time. It's 7:30, and I'm gonna invite everyone up to come make comments. We'll start with 3 minutes each, and if we have time for repeats, we'll do that.
Can I finish your comments?
Yes, so we'll start with you, Chris, please.
I think you were over exaggerating my meaning. I wasn't trying to throw water on this project, no pun intended. What I was trying to tell you is we need to go further, okay? To guarantee these people at least that 4-inch reduction to 12 inches. I'm saying that in this $4.3 million, there should be enough funding. I was laughed at when I told the select board we could build both of our fire stations for between $3 and $3.5 million. They went and voted in a $5.8 million bond anyway. We rescinded it. And then I went back to the table with the real information and proved to them when we got both buildings built for less than $3 million. Same thing with this here. When I was on the select board, they wanted to bond for, some people on the board wanted to bond for 5 million. I said, if you both bond for more than 3 million, this ain't gonna fly. We got this project done with the help of the Library Commission and other donations for under 3 million to the taxpayers. What I'm telling you is that there's enough money in that 4.3 million that we should be able to reduce the amount of material in that field to achieve at least a 2-foot minimum reduction in flood elevation. It may end up not being a frolicking park for everybody, but what are we trying to achieve here? Are we actually trying to achieve flood reduction, or are we trying to achieve a playground? So my goal is to maximize the amount of flood reduction that we can get out of that one field, because if we do it wrong the first time, to go back again, it's gonna be a hell of a lot more costly and detrimental to this community. So let's do it right the first time and actually make a substantial impact. So that was my explanation.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris. Appreciate it. I have a question from Damien online, which I'm just gonna read out in case anyone wants to weigh in. Damien's question is, does anyone have a ballpark figure for how many homes on Randall Street saw first floor damage in 2023/2024? I know the answer is not 0, but I don't have a more definitive answer than that. If someone present here does, we can say it.
I know there are a few houses on Elm Street, that got first floor damage. Randall Street, don't know of any.
I think it was 1, 2, 3, 4.
Can we repeat loudly? Otherwise I have to.
I'm just guessing. I don't believe any on Randall had first floor damage in 2023, 2024. I believe, starting at like 7 Elm Street, working up to 21 Elm Street had the first floor damage, maybe 3 of the 4.
Great. So hearing multiple homes on Elm Street had first floor flood damage in 23/24.
4 or 5 houses on Union Street, or was it 4? 4 on Union, were for first floor damage.
Yeah, so Elm Street and Union Street, Randall Street, which what was asked about, we don't think first floor damage in that year. Again, that's an around the table estimate from folks here.
But there were a number of basements that got flooded in 23 and in 24 on the street.
Great. I'm gonna read Whitney's and then I'm gonna change chat to co-host only so we do less of this, but Whitney just says, Chris makes a fair point to consider taking more material out. Approving the bond is a step in the right direction, even if it's just a foot. I see a hand up from Dawn. I had Harry and Carrie in the room, and then we'll go to you, Dawn. So go ahead, Harry.
I need more than 3 minutes.
Okay, well, I've got a timer running to start, so come on up.
I think, some of the stuff I hope to present may help with some better understanding as to what we think we're getting and what's indicated here. I'd hoped that we might be able to bring up Malone and McBroom's report.
On the houses. Sorry, just we gotta get to the right.
Sorry, it's on the meeting page.
Oh, it is. This one, hydraulic?
Yeah, hydrology
Start
is the one
yeah.
above it, the budget and,
Start with that one, please.
Yeah, working on it.
the hydrology or the report and budget, Harry, just to clarify.
Yeah, the hydraulic
Perfect.
report, yes.
Thanks.
And if you could go to page 6, it's where I hope to kind of start my thoughts. Keep going, what next page, please, up?
Well, I'm at 8 of 8, so I did something.
6,
there.
keep going to one of the plans, please.
All right, this is what's uploaded, so I gotta try to come back to that.
And I'd like to start here by saying I'm almost a 5th year practicing civil engineer. Early in my career, I used to do a lot of bridge hydraulics. Okay. When this grant proposal was first brought forward, I offered that my immediate reaction was one of suspicion as to how much flood reduction we were hoping to achieve. But if we were able to provide some relief for people in our village when it was fully gonna be funded with federal and state money, with what was represented in the fall, I was supportive, even though I was suspicious. I offer that there is a lot of representations made in both Dana's stuff and in the grant application that is not consistent with hydraulics and hydrology that we received from the engineer for this development. If you could go to the plan that shows this sheet, please. Right there you go. So right there is a key for a sheet, and the white lines that go through the cornfield and then further upstream and further downstream are FEMA transects. They are kind of section lines that is done with the FEMA analysis. And in fact, the two that go through the cornfield were kind of high points of what the preliminary engineering, the conceptual engineering that's done here analyze. They also looked a little further upstream. And you could see that the river corridor gets narrow as we get towards the center of the state office complex. I'll also point out that what you can kind of see on this is that river corridor also gets very narrow immediately downstream because of the Municipal Street Bridge. And then a little further downstream, it gets even narrower because of the embankment for the train tracks and the property across on the Duxfield side to the left-hand side of that. So there's a lot happening here from a river hydraulics standpoint that is influenced more by than just what's in this cornfield. But for what was analyzed in the report, the two sections through the cornfield, and then I'm going to make reference to the one that's to the right, that's kind of in the center of the state office complex. I can't read the numbers from it here, but now if you would go up to sheet 2, I think it is. Oh, up into there you go, right there. Okay. If you could zoom in to start on the left, right? One of the things I kept hearing about was somewhere between 4 inches and a foot for a 50-year event. Kind of surprising me, because most of the time we're talking about river hydraulics and flooding and things like that. We're not really talking about 50-year events generally. That's just for size of culverts. So I asked to try to get this more detailed hydraulic information. It's available. What we see up there on top is kind of the analysis of the existing conditions. The top one's one of those bisects. The second one is the second bisect. And that's establishing, you can see one of the columns there is water surface elevation, WS elevation. And then for the existing conditions and the flows that they've estimated for, it's the 10-year, the 50-year, the 100-year, and the 500-year. The estimated water surface elevation for those flows at those two bisects are indicated in those columns. Okay. Below is the preliminary design intent, which shows reducing 100,000 yards of flood storage within the cornfield. And if you can scroll down a little more, and that shows kind of what proposed conditions would be versus existing conditions would be. I'd like to now ask if you could scroll over to the water surface elevation summary sheets on the right. So the top one there, the RS is the river section.
So I'm just saying, this is 9 minutes when you're done with this.
I'm gonna need more time. If you need to kick me off, I'll stop. The river sections was shown there, RS on the left. And then you see existing 10-year, existing 50 kind of working across, proposed 10-year, proposed 50. Okay, up to the 500-year event. And then underneath is even a better kind of summary of What the difference will be for implementing 100,000 yard cut in that cornfield for the proposed condition at those two bisects behind Randall Street. And you'll see that the biggest number you got there is 0.2 feet. If you take it out a further decimal place and you study it a little further, which I did, what I can share with you is that if we do this project in Randall Field, we will lower the water service elevation approximately 2 inches for a 10-year event and approximately an inch for up to 100-year event. Now I would like to ask if you could go down to this profile.
What's the title?
Okay, so that one is not the profile I'm ideal for, but go back to it if you can, okay? That shows basically what I just described to you, that the behind Randall Field in the center of these triceps for a 10-year event, removing 100,000 yards, we're only gonna lower the water surface elevation 0.2 feet. So next, if you could go down to the next, this is a profile of what the existing versus proposed conditions are. To the left, that vertical line you see is our Winooski Street Bridge. To the right, the vertical lines you see is our South Main Street Bridge out by Duxbury and Homestead down there. Working across, this 0.3 to 1 foot of depth that might be achieved will only occur right in the center of the state office complex towards the river. And in fact, if you look, you can see there's a little gap between existing and proposed. It's right in the center of the state office complex. I've heard it said by some folks that actually 7,000 feet away, it's again fractions of an inch. In fact, the only impact we're really going to see is immediately below the state office complex. And that's not going to provide any benefit because of the way the office complex is graded for the flood work that was done there after Hurricane Irene. And so when we're talking about what we're hoping to achieve for flood improvement and what is being represented in a bunch of stuff that we've got, either Dana's stuff or there's a ton of stuff in the application that we submitted for the grant funding, there are real hardcore misrepresentations being made as to what kind of impact we are really gonna have for implementing this extensive project. We can never get to 2 feet. It's hydraulically not possible. We're doing something much hardcore like to really have that type of an impact. And so, if I can go back to that profile.
So I've given you 3
Okay.
times the amount for other speakers, and we have 2 others, and then you can come back.
If you look at that, if you look at that profile behind Randolph Street, we are not having any influence. There's a little bit of influence behind the state office complex. And it's really primarily because what's controlling the backwater here is not that mound of dirt in the cornfield. It's the Winooski Street Bridge. And if we're really gonna try to do anything about lowering flooding here and spending millions of dollars in debt bonded stuff that we're not paying for with property taxes, we ought to seriously be considering about redoing the Winooski Street Bridge, making that more hydraulically efficient, much more bang for the buck. This is not gonna do anything. I fear that when we really smell out what is represented in this application, we're into further trouble down the road with this grant application. I wish there were a simple solution to this. I appreciate that the people in our village suffer greatly, but this is not thought out. It's not prepared for a bond vote. Chris hit on some excellent topics. Major earthwork projects it's all about hauler. If we don't know where we're going with this stuff, we don't have the soils classified. We see that it's an urban soil. We don't know what the contaminants are in that river outwash for the last how many years, needs to be checked out. If we can, substantial earthwork projects require permits on the other side, including Act 250. We're not just getting rid of 100,000 yards because we think we can do it like this. All of them, those fill sites require permits, required to actually know what we're bringing in. And Chris is absolutely right that haul length is the key. We do not have any basis for understanding how much this project is going to cost until we know where we're going with the soils. And we know what it's going to cost to actually get the permits for finding a home for 100,000 yards of material. Maybe we have town property where it could be dealt with, I don't know. But it is really complicated in our state to permit large scale earthwork projects like this. But we have no basis for understanding how much this project is going to cost. Thank you.
Thanks, Terry. Terry, you were next.
No, thanks, sorry, I read the time for Harry and he covered my questions, so thank you very much.
Yep. Dawn, online, you were next. Dawn, you had your hand up and it's now down, but it's your turn if you'd like to go ahead.
No, that's okay. I'm all right.
Other folks with questions or comments on this? Yeah.
Hello, Mount Morrison. I live on Winooski. I have volunteered in the last 3 major floods. I spent a lot of time in here, and also especially on Union Street, mucking out houses. And after every event, especially during it, talking to people who have been impacted by these floods, so many people had real concerns about what can we do about the Randall Street Meadow, the cornfields. And I think that is one of many options in our pocket to try to address flooding. We know flooding's only going to get worse. I think it's really exciting that we are now in a position to be able to actually start to move forward on a project to address flooding in Waterbury. It is not, like to many other people's points, it's not a perfect solution. There is no single solution to bring down flooding in this town by, several feet. That would be great, but it's a diversity of tactics that we have to employ. And I think the bond vote is a really important first step in the right direction in a multi-year, multi-phase project. And I know the dollar value is scary, like that's a lot of money, but we also have the opportunity to win a very substantial amount of money to move these projects forward. And there's a lot of questions that I think are very valid, but we can't know the answers to them unless we move forward with the bond. So if we're serious about doing flood mitigation in Waterbury, I really encourage folks to vote in favor of the bond so that we can do the studies that are needed, so that we can do the designs that are needed to actually start to make a difference. And I think, we had a really great town visioning session after the 2023 flood, and there was a lot of hope around this meadow. And even if it's not, some silver bullet, I think from a psychological perspective, I think it's a really material thing that we could do to make progress in taking flooding seriously and developing a culture that takes flooding seriously and climate emergency seriously in Waterbury. We can't do sort of small onesie-twosie things. We have to start doing material projects and creating a culture that takes flooding very seriously in this town. And I think post 2023, we're seeing a lot more of that. And then even if we just turn this into like a wetland again, if we restored the habitat, and that was the only thing we did this project, it would have real material benefits to Waterbury's local environment. And to Dana's point, the ecosystem services are huge. So I'm very in favor of the bond. I'm really excited about it. I hope there's going to be a lot more public input into the design, but I encourage folks to vote yes. And thanks everyone for your work on it. I know it's a very big project.
Thanks, Mel. other folks with comments? It's 7:50, so we have time for a few more folks if people have questions or comments they want to add before we close the hearing. Oh, I'm sorry, Skip, come on up.
Skip Flanders. I've lived through these floods we're talking about. I've listened to the comments and things I put in for the buyout. I'm not gonna take it for reasons of the housing situation going forward. But inches are important. I was one of the houses that missed getting water on the first floor, like 2 inches in all 3 of the floods. So whatever help it can cause is important. And I second it's important to do something, and the bond vote, maybe it's not what everybody expects to get, but doing something is better than just saying, a prayer and hope that the next flood doesn't hit it. So I hope we go forward with it. I think there are consultants who have the answers to the questions that are raised, that there's gotta be some facts, behind the applications that we have and things. So, anyway, I support the project, and the inches are important, so thank you.
Thank you, Skip. Next up, I'm gonna go to Amy Marshall Carney online, who offered to read something that Kathy Grace submitted. Go ahead, Amy.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm going to read this that she had submitted. To whom it may concern, and I am unable to be at tonight's meeting or on Zoom to a work-related events. However, I do support the Randall Meadow project as long as it does not push more water towards South Main Street. It is my understanding that it will actually reduce the water amounts in my area of South Main Street. I do have one outstanding concern. Is there a reason why we switched hydrologists? I thought Roy Schiff did an excellent job for us with modeling, etc. I feel like there may be a conflict of interest between Dana's position on the Planning Commission and his contract with the town. This was pretty apparent to me in the meeting last week, where he didn't think a flood rise to 425 feet was very significant. It seems that he is letting his zoning hat override the cares and concerns of those of us who live in the floodplain and rely on hydrologists' unbiased information to make careful decisions. I would like this read at tonight's meeting if possible. Catherine Grace.
Awesome. Thank you, Amy, and thank you for taking the time to read that. My only question, I believe we've used SLR for both hydrology studies. Is that correct?
We used them initially, I know that, I'm not sure after that. I'll say I don't know.
Great.
SLR does a lot of work for us, otherwise.
I will point out that our hydrology study that's linked to tonight's meeting is all SLR, so.
Yeah, it's the same group.
Yeah. So I can't confirm the individual. My understanding was we were using the same group. I know Dana has done some of his own modeling, so I'm not saying that there isn't components of that, but I know the town has hired SLR. Thank you, Billy.
Billy Bigler, I'm on the planning commission, but I'm not speaking on behalf. Planning commission actually hasn't done, and Marcia could correct me, we haven't really done substantive work on this project. We did agree to support a letter of support for the grant application. Dana recused himself. So I don't believe Dana has any conflict of interest when it comes to this project. I also want to support something that Mal pointed out. While Randall Meadow is a big project, it will take some time. All right, it sounds like it's going to be controversial. I really think we have a list of other things we can do, and maybe we shouldn't just focus on one project. Maybe we should really work on kind of all hands on multiple things to do, particularly if we think we're talking about interest. So I'm not saying don't do this, but I'm saying don't do only this. I think we need to kind of look at, go back to that visioning session
and go back and look and see what else we can do, because I know there's a lot of discussion about debris. I might be misremembering around the Municipal Bridge or something like that, not dredging, I don't think we were talking, but anyway, there were good ideas there, and I think we've kind of not really gone back to that, so let's do doable small things while we try to do the big thing.
Listen,
Thanks, Billy. Go ahead, King.
I'm just gonna respond to you, Billy. I would say that this is one of a few things that we are doing, right? Our fail safe is the volunteer corps when floods happen, right? We have the volunteer corps out there. That is nothing, that's not for nothing. We've spent a ton of time on that. And a lot of volunteer hours to put all that together. And that's essentially, right? We know floods are gonna happen, right? This one project helps us prevent at least a couple inches, right? And when that fails, we have the volunteer corps step in. We haven't just been solely focused on this one project. We've been focused on a whole bunch of projects, and the two that have risen to the top have been these two.
Look, okay, then I'm corrected, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I wasn't trying to blame anybody, but I did think that there were lots of small things that I.
Yeah.
I see Tom Glore has his hands up online, and then we'll go to Carrie. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I'm just curious. I listened to Harry's presentation, and I've heard about the Winooski Bridge as well. I know that at one time, the Harvey Farm area was in play. I know that's private property. I'm just curious as to why that back then was the preferred option. I believe it's beyond the Winooski Bridge, and I think it probably had to do with that choke point. So I just think, again, I think all mitigation is good. So I'm not saying this is something I would vote against. I think we should proceed, but I like what Billy said in combination with the math that Harry laid out, because I think the worst thing you can do is set an expectation of feet when we're really talking inches. And I think that's the piece of expectation. The last thing I'll say is there's a question in the chat about if you had the bond for 4.3, and let's just say it went over, right, the 2 million, and we didn't get as much, is there an implication on tax rate that you guys would be willing to address with the public, at least during town meeting, if, say, the bond was a $2 million bond? I would be prepared for that question. That's all.
Thank you, Tom. And I think we have talked about having that information, but I don't have it tonight, just in terms of the various scenarios of what a bond would cost, potential funding mechanisms for various scenarios of grant funding and non-grant funding. You had a hand up. I see Kane and then Roger and then Carrie had her hand up.
Just two things here. There's a really good article in VT Digger on the Harvey Farm and interviews with the property owner, regarding that subject. The second thing is, for anyone interested in joining the volunteer corps, should floods happen, which they will, muck out training is this Friday.
Thanks, Roger.
Yeah, just to address Tom's question, back when I was serving as chair, we did engage with the Harvey family that owns the farm over here, because that was the preferred area of mitigation, to excavate the bank opposite the railroad embankment, which does serve as a major choke point according to the 2013 hydrology study that would have reduced the flood by more like a foot overall. And we just hit an impasse. They did not want to deal with it. We took it all the way up to the governor, and the governor would not invoke any change. So that project went off the table.
Yeah, I guess to be explicit, since it's the last meeting, the Harvey Farm part was preferred because it had the biggest potential hydraulic relief for the downtown, and up to and including looking at, you can't eminent domain outside of your borders unless you're the governor of the state of Vermont. And we did get a legal opinion and ask that question. So to say we're not taking all the options seriously, whether or not, just to say that's some of the background work. Carrie hasn't spoken yet and had a hand up, so go ahead.
Carrie McMillan, Waterbury. Just one quick thing. I do have questions about finances, but it's much bigger. But to address Billy's question, I do believe that we are involved in a major town-wide study with Central Regional Vermont Planning Commission that's looking at both that road down by the ice rink, Randall Meadow, and our whole entire kind of watershed area. That will kind of look at our whole entire region and best advise for that. I don't know how our current bond vote and this project will actually fit within that, but there are a lot of things happening behind the scenes that not a lot of people know about. So I'm just kind of wanted to throw that.
Thank you. And that is actually also funded by a community development block grant disaster recovery that, again, we're not getting, we're a sub grant from the Regional Planning Commission. Chris had a hand up again, but I do want to do one more call for anyone who hasn't had a chance to speak yet, and then happy to have you up.
I just wanted to say that perhaps, I know things have changed over there to Harvey's property. So they may be amenable to a revisit of this particular proposal. I don't know that for sure, but I would, never hurts to ask. You don't know until you ask. So.
Thanks, Chris. Don, you have a hand up online. Go ahead.
Yeah, really want to support some studies. I don't know where it's at in regard to the Winooski Street Bridge. I was on the select board from 2014 to 18. That seems like a pretty obvious way not to have water dammed up behind those abutments of that narrow bridge. Plus, the bridge is kind of outdated anyway. However, I do want to say not to do this project. I hope I'm concerned about the people on Randall Street. I'm not a hydrologist on the parking lot and saw the water and went right to those homes on Randall Street. In fact, one of them in 2011 blew out the wall of a basement because that water was diverted right to those homes. If we don't do this project, then, good luck to those people on Randall Street. And I'm not ready to throw them under the bus. I think we need to do this. I think we need to do a variety.
We're losing you a little, Don.
And inches, what pump there? What's that?
We're good now. You were going in and out a little. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, and almost all downtown.
Awesome. Thanks, Don. I'm noting we have a comment in the chat just about how much it would be covered or affected property taxes. And that would have to do with what, if any, other grants we get. Again, this is to authorize issuing a bond, but it's not issuing a bond, so we don't have that, but we can have some hypotheticals for town meeting just to address that comment. Anyone else? So I will say we are at the time to close this public informational meeting. Is there anyone who hasn't gotten a chance to speak who would like to add anything? Yep, come on, Sarah Lee.
Sarah Lee at Waterbury Center. I've been here through Irene and mucked out and whatnot, but we all know that this doesn't just affect the people on Randall Street in their homes, the residents, it affects the businesses on Lower Main Street, it affects Union Street, and I just think that it's more than just a residential issue, and to bring that up. The other thing that I wanted to say is that even if it's not a perfect solution, as we've said, time is of the essence. I mean, today's news that FEMA funding is going to be slashed by as much as 50%, and people, I've been listening to frustration of the residents trying to get their paperwork done and get their FEMA funding, and sometimes it goes on for years, and anything we can do to mitigate the suffering that lasts so long.
Thanks, Sarah Lee.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments from anyone that they'd like to share on this? I'll take the prerogative to again comment myself as a select board member and the one who served as chair, and just acknowledge the comment about public engagement and looking at other alternatives. I'll just note that that's absolutely feedback the select board has received. We've had a ton of municipal staff transition. We have a 10-hour a month consultant who has been working on this, and I'll say it's absolutely insufficient. So we have not proposed in this year's budget a full-time position. We've kind of stuck with where we're at, but just to say that just want to acknowledge as the outgoing select board chair, it is really hard to do the day-to-day business of a town and to do strategic long-term planning. This community has experience doing it after Irene, I think did really well and had a lot of outside resources and support and increased municipal staffing to make that a reality. So to the extent I get to have a personal pitch at the end of it, it's certainly something I'm excited to be involved in. I think we have tried hard to, but also acknowledge that with the resources we have been focused and also been doing a number of projects. Does anyone else have anything to add on this before we close the public hearing? All right, so voting for this again will be by Australian ballot on town meeting day. You can request to vote early via the town clerk if that is of interest to folks, or vote the day of. And again, in terms of bond or other cost information, we'll get that on the town website when we can, but be able to speak to it at town meeting as folks said. Any other questions or comments on this agenda item before we move on? Right, and I'll just acknowledge Dana is not here, but he's the one who did a lot of the work to get us to where we are today, and so I just wanted to say that before we close. Any other comments on this? Great, going once, going twice, I will move us to our next agenda item, which is a revitalizing Waterbury budget presentation, and I believe we have Lindsay Sullivan online.
Yes, hi, thanks, Alyssa.
Alyssa?
Yep.
This is an area where I do have a conflict of interest, and I've signed a statement that I need to mitigate any discussions or influence that I might have, so I'm gonna step out and we'll step back when Lindsay is finished.
Good. Thanks, Roger. So Roger's just noting he's stepping out for this conversation. But Lindsay, I will turn it over to you.
If you're going to get snacks, bring the snacks.
Do you want some of ours? Yeah, this is my dinner. So.
I'll take your break.
Thanks, Alyssa. I'm Lindsay Sullivan. I am a resident of Waterbury Center. I'm also the president for the Revitalizing Waterbury Board of Directors. I am coming back after I was here in November, just following up about being included in the budget for town meeting day. And I have a little presentation. I was just going to share my screen if I can. I just sent a request. Here we go. Thank you. This one. Great. So is that showing it's all good for you guys?
Yep.
Great. All right. So this is what I presented back in November following our board retreat. And since we last spoke, our organization has created a kind of more fleshed out 3-year strategic plan. We just finished our last 3-year strategic plan, so this is kind of a year of transition for us. And I'm just going to share a couple specifics for you guys about project plans for 2026 and also highlights for 2025 as we go forward. So first and foremost, the historic Waterbury, enriching the heritage and cultural identity of the town. This is one of the mainstays for our strategic goals. RW's jumpstarting NQID with a return of train day. We had a very successful trial year in 2025, and we're partnering with various train enthusiasts to add to this fun event. We have also joined the Waterbury 250 committee and have a US focus in 2026, a Vermont focus in 2027. We've also partnered with the Waterbury Historical Society, and we are updating and promoting historic walking tours, and our own Revitalizing Waterbury volunteer community ambassadors will be welcoming visitors at the train station, which is always a fun time. For those who don't know, we actually own the historic train station, and we maintain that building. We maintain and update the community space, and we are also the landlords for the Black Cap Cafe that is currently housed there. Our next strategic goal is our vibrant downtown. Our goal is to expand and diversify a vital downtown community. Waterbury Arts Fest, of course, is our biggest event of the year, and that will be July 10th and 11th this year. Each year we have been receiving more and more applications for that event, and it has really become a popular event among artists in the state and really pulls a big crowd, which we're really excited about. Our design committee is taking down the winter garlands on March 6th and then focusing on cleaning up and mulching the gardens around town. We replace all the banners on lamp poles and prepare the hanging baskets in conjunction with the Parks Department. Our garland program, we're also going to continue expanding along Main Street and hopefully further into Waterbury Center, up Route 100 of hopefully eventually, and those will go back up in the first week in November. We also coordinated with the business input on Bidwell and Foundry streetscape improvement this year. And Owen Seti Ducati, who is our former economic development director, spent considerable time in 2025 on the state transportation grant. And he was able to get our town $200,000 to pave Bidwell Lane, redo some sidewalks and parking lots over there. I'm sure you've seen how nice those look, and the addition of new wayfinding that will actually conclude this spring. So that project isn't quite finished, but thank you to Owen, who is no longer working for us, but for that considerable effort. This fall, we also hosted the 24 designated downtowns of Vermont, as well as the Vermont Department of Tourism for a Main Street America conference. With the efforts that RW and our town in general has put into downtown vibrancy, we have really become a poster child for other Vermont designated downtowns. We had other economic development directors and downtown vibrancy directors who were asking for our advice, and we've really cultivated a strong relationship with the Department of Tourism and have been asked to kind of spearhead efforts for those programs, including our 72-hour Stay in Waterbury guide that's being used as a template for the other 24 towns in Vermont, which is very exciting. So we're doing a lot in that capacity. Waterbury United, this is to integrate RW's downtown initiatives with Waterbury Center and Route 100 in a united townwide effort. This goal of uniting downtown activities with the rest of the town has been a conversation for a very long time for our organization, but it really started in earnest this past year in 2025 with RW's participation on the Better Connections planning project to improve pedestrian and bike safety in Waterbury Center. And in 2026, we are partnering with the Antique Car Show for the first time to introduce a new Cruise Route 100 event on Friday, August 7th, which has business support from multiple businesses along Route 100, including Cold Hollow Cider being a really fun kind of culmination for this new event. Or I guess distribution of this event. Waterbury Resiliency is our efforts to build volunteer capacity and resilient community spirit. We had 32 volunteer-based organizations participate in our 2025 Community Volunteer Fair. It was a brand new event last year. It was kind of like a revitalization of an event from many years ago, and we are holding it again this year in partnership with the Waterbury Rec Department, and that will be on March 28th at Brookside Primary School again. Part of this initiative is to promote community of volunteers, not just for our organization, but for our community as a whole. We do work with businesses, but we also work with nonprofits. And when we ask our nonprofit community how we can better serve them, they all say a resounding more volunteers. And so this kind of effort of hyper-local connection is really important to our organization, and was very well received last year. We also are the fiscal sponsor for the Community Resiliency for the Waterbury area, or otherwise known as CREW. We just signed a new MOU with CREW as they are transitioning from long-term recovery efforts to flood risk mitigation. Just throw back to your last conversation there. for our Taste of Waterbury, this is to strengthen Waterbury's reputation for fine foods, beverages, and flavors. One of the things that we do is marketing and tourism for the town. In our designated downtown conference, one of the things that they really were pushing folks to do was to, do what you do well. And our town does food really, really well. And we have food and tastes and drinks that are delicious, and people seek us out for that. So, we're building on that reputation as a great place to eat by bringing back some food vendors to the park on Thursday night for the Rotary concerts. We are also partnering with other organizations who are spearheading events and trying to figure out ways to kind of encourage and connect vendors, and how to kind of uplift events that are already being run by people, including Music in the Alley and Passeggiata. And so really trying to connect more with other organizations, which is also important to us. The Vermont's Recreational Roundabout, we are doing a lot of projects to further develop the culture of healthy, active living in our town, including the Waterbury Pathways Project. RW applied for state funding to improve connectivity and access to trails and paths around town to promote healthy recreation activities, and really to enhance what we already have. We're not trying to, reinvent the wheel here. No pun intended. But that is a project that we are also involved with. We're also sharing a booth at the Discover New England conference with the Mad River Valley Chamber. We are at such a great connection point between so many mountains and so many other recreational destinations that really trying to capitalize and lean into, capitalize is the wrong word, but lean into those kind of recreational destinations. So we're partnering with the Mad River Valley Chamber and promoting, we'll be sharing a table up in Burlington. This is a conference that is normally not held in Vermont. This is the first time it's being held in Vermont. Vermont does not usually have a lot of representation there. And Waterbury and Mad River Valley Chamber has agreed to host a table where we're promoting soft adventure to international visitors. These are people from like Italy, France, Sweden, who are just looking to come up there. It's a very interesting study. Anyway, so we'll be over there up this spring to promote soft adventures to international visitors, and we're working with the Vermont Department of Tourism and Marketing to highlight opportunities for filming promotional stuff around Waterbury and showcasing our unique community. And then lastly, we have our Clean Technology Hub. This is to promote Waterbury as a center for creative and renewable technologies. As I mentioned back in November, our previous economic development director left in late October for another position in Michigan. And we hired 2 part-time staffers who've been fantastic. One more admin, one more marketing side, but they have been taking on the economic development pieces that we need. They did stage the Waterbury Business Roundtable, and one of the outcomes from that roundtable was that Core Power, the Waterbury-based renewable energy manufacturer, agreed to implement a workforce housing survey with their employees. And I'm also very happy to announce that RW has a finalist candidate for the economic development position. And she will be starting this Friday. So she will be implementing this workforce housing survey and extending it to other large employers in town and taking on other economic development duties, including working with the Waterbury Area Development Committee, helping businesses apply for historic tax credits, updating commercial property availability, writing business newsletter, and helping with the UDAG, the low-cost UDAG loans that our EDD has done for businesses in the past. So we have a lot going on. We've kind of adopted a lot of new things in our new strategic plan based on surveys and conversations we've had with our members and our sponsors. So this is our revenue. Sorry, excuse me. So last year we requested and were approved for $95,000 from the town in funding. This year we're asking for 96,650, which is a little over a 1.5% increase. As I showed, we have continued to add to our programs and to our connections in and out of the community, trying to find creative ways to boost vitality and connection while still maintaining our individual community that we all love so much. As you can see in the graph, the town funding makes up less than a third of our annual revenue. And it's important to note that this state vibrancy grant of $25,000 is awarded to designated downtowns as supplemental grant money and is not in place of town funding and is specifically stated as such. So we were awarded this last year. We've been awarded it for a few years, but it is meant as kind of bonus funds that we can use towards, the streetscaping, the plantings, the other vibrancy things that we do around the town. Our expenses here. So sorry, I'll go back. Our revenue you'll see is 302,000. Our expenses are 304. We work on a really really small margin here. We have our general admin covers, the ED salary, the staff salaries, bookkeeping, insurance, rent, fundraising, mailings, etc. The train station, again, we are the landlords to that building. We do own that space, so there is a lot of maintenance that goes into that. This year, that included a full new HVAC system, and some ventilation stuff is in the works this year. But most of our funding goes to program expenses, and that's for the town, right? I mean, like that's where most of our funding is going. Let me see, some of that is like the streetscape design. So little less than 7,000 per year goes to Vermont Grant Gardenscape to install and take down the garlands. We'll get some additional garlands this year, the flowers for the hanging basket, other, and then of course the rest of our programming for the years. The individual projects, like new project initiatives, such as Jack's Alley, the Waterbury Pathways, Cruising Route 100, those have their own expenses for signage and art installation and event promotion, and those are covered by our fundraising and sponsorships and grants that we receive. So as far as the allocation of town funds, most of it does go to the funding of the economic development director, or that position, the work that we do, the streetscape design and marketing and promotion. Our MOU requires us to do economic development work, whether we have an ED or not. And as I said, we did lose our ED back in the end of October. That being said, with the hiring of our admin and our marketing person, we were still able to do, what we needed to do for the last couple of months while still trying to look for a new economic development director. So we hired Natalie and Ariel back in November, and they put on the business roundtable, which has resulted in this housing workforce survey that will go out. Task force, excuse me. Ariel also compiled a downtown reinvestment survey that indicated there was over $6 million of private investment in new construction this past year, which included 51 South Main and the Kingsbury Granite Shed. They coordinated business mixers and welcoming new business Rise Up Refill, and we also, sorry, where is that? There was also, oh, there it is. I'm sorry. Yes, so we were able to still do for the past 3.5 months the things that we needed to get done per our MOU. our MOU is from 2020, which if we need to update at some point, we are open to that conversation. But at this point, that's kind of the information that we've needed to provide. So in summary, we are requesting that the select board put forward $96,650, a 1.7% increase in funding from last year, to be included in the budget to be presented to voters on town meeting day. Your continued support over the last many years has allowed us to expand on our programs and bring positive benefits to individuals and to businesses in our community. So thank you very much for your time, and I will yield my screen back to you.
Thank you very much, Lindsay.
Yeah.
I have a couple of additional, you are still screen sharing, just so you know.
Yes, I'm, thank you. There you
One, could you email those slides to Cheryl, Casey, and I, so we can put them on the town website for this meeting?
100%.
Thank you. And then I just wanted to give some additional background about timelines and process, because questions have come up. So, the town has provided funding to Revitalizing Waterbury for a number of years. I was the economic development director for Revitalizing Waterbury in 2017 when I moved to Waterbury, so full disclosure. But I just want to say, in terms of process for this year, as Lindsay said, she first came to the select board on November 17th. There is materials linked under that meeting with the same requests that she just outlined. So for the $61,650 for economic development, and then the $35,000 in the beautification and promotion, the $96,650. We put that in the budget. So just to be like, the town meeting warning was done, we did the town meeting budget, included general government with that 1.7% increase for Revitalizing Waterbury. We had the presentation on the 17th. We did a all-day budget retreat on December 7th, and the draft that Tom Lights brought to us had that amount penciled in. So I just want to be upfront with everyone about the timing and the process. This is the additional follow-up that Lindsay is sharing with some more details about RW's budget, but that concludes my comments. I'm happy to have other board members with questions or comments, and then we can turn it over to the public. Okay.
I just had a general concern between the revenue from and expenses on the train station. Seemed like your revenue was 41,000 and you spent 40,000.
So Green Mountain Coffee Roasters used to be the tenant there, and we had a fantastic deal with them where they just took care of the building and they paid all the rent, and we had very little to do with it. Then they left and COVID happened, and the building went into slight disrepair during COVID. So there were a couple things that had to be replaced. That being said, we are on a, and the term is escaping me right now, but with our current tenant, we are on a, they started at a lower rate and they're slowly increasing. And as of next year, their rent will be at their full amount, which is quite a bit higher. So we actually gave them some kind of leeway to pay us a lower rent and be at kind of like a stasis, so that then once they were at a higher, over the course of 4 years, their rent has been kind of scaling up. So yes, those numbers don't look great, but next year those numbers will be substantially different. And that was mapped out probably back in 2021 or 2022 when that I guess 2021 would be when that happened. But and then of course we had big expenses this year. We had the entire air conditioning system needed to be replaced, so it was a big expense year. But again, that rent is about to do another jump in the next 6 months, 8 months. That rent will jump again, and then our rent next year will be at the full value that it used to be.
Thanks, Lindsay. Other questions or comments from the board? All right, not seeing any. I'll go to questions from the public, starting with Amy.
Thank you. Before I go into my commentary here, I just want to make sure that everyone understands that I do appreciate quite a bit that Revitalizing Waterbury has provided to the town. I think that's important to state because I think what's coming next is going to be more of a commentary specific to the select board. And what I want to speak about is more about a governance concern. So regarding, a strategic plan that's being presented by a nonprofit, Revitalizing Waterbury. And while I appreciate the energy, the volunteerism, some of the beautiful vibrancy that's translated, what I get concerned is when a private organization begins to advance initiatives that can and will result in municipal spending. So things like long-term maintenance, obligations, policy alignment. I feel very strongly that we really need to take a pause and make sure we clarify the roles here. Because under Vermont law, I'm clear that fiscal authority and policy direction rests with our select board and ultimately the voters, which you folks represent. And so when a nonprofit does not have the statutory authority to commit taxpayers directly or indirectly to future financial obligations, even grant-funded projects, which often we know require matching funds, staff time, or ongoing maintenance costs, they all fall to the taxpayers over time. So my concern is not about a single project or an effort that was just shared with us. It's about the overall process. Where taxpayers asked formally and transparently before these priorities, my question is, I guess, were we asked formally and transparently before these priorities were framed as a community strategy? Question number one. Has there been a clear vote authorizing expanded municipal alignment or financial exposure? Question number two. And if grant opportunities are being pursued, which they have without that input, have the long-term costs been fully modeled and disclosed? And everything I've seen to date suggests no. I really want to caution that we should be very careful not to create parallel planning structures where agenda setting shifts from an elected official to a private board. That risk is really blurring accountability, and it ultimately weakens our overall democratic oversight. So my request here today is before the town endorses or aligns with us, which I understand, Alyssa, you'd already said that it's in our budget. I really want to make sure that it's clear, like what potential fiscal obligations can arise. And this was something I raised with the Better Connections. I've raised it with these grants that were already applied for before we understood them. And I understand people are saying that's planning. We don't know yet, and all of these costs. But I also know what happens when you receive money from a grant. You start to spend it. I also want to make sure I'm clear about what formal authorization. So I haven't looked at the MOU. I'd love to look at the MOU, and I really appreciated Lindsay's commentary around it may be an opportunity for us to revisit before any municipal commitment occurs. Like, are we outdated with where we're at, given the current structure and financial implications of, property taxes and all that fun stuff. But I also want to make sure that we're really clear about how taxpayer input is going to be secured before things move forward. And that's something that I have vehemently communicated, not only to Lindsay, but to Roger, and I believe I've copied you as well, Alyssa, that I don't believe that's occurred. I believe that what's happened is we've had grant action occur before we even understood what was happening. And then if the money comes, we're going to find ourselves in a situation where how do we resolve the fiscal debt that's going to be created aftermath? I really appreciate that you give me the opportunity to say this. It's something that I know that I've felt very strongly about, but I really think this is a governance question, not necessarily to you, Lindsay, as a Revitalizing Waterbury question. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy. Anyone have a response they'd like to offer? Looks like Mike does.
I want to respond to Amy's question. I don't have a problem with a relationship with RW. I think RW meets with the board several times per year. They advise us on what's happening. I don't want to be a micromanager. We can't do everything on the select. And I feel very strongly about that. The reason why RW has taken over a lot of these ads is because there's not the capacity in government. And I don't want to, yes, I want to have oversight of what RW does, but I don't want to have the thumb on driving the wheel for what every little last thing they do. They do enough reporting to us. If I felt there was a problem with what they're doing, I would say so. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Other questions or comments on this topic? Sarah?
So I guess, here's my concern, it looks like they were over budget. And was there any concern then? Was there any discussion? So again, to go to Amy's concern, where's the oversight when we're town taxpayers are giving money to a nonprofit and all of a sudden they're over budget, but that's okay? I guess it's not really a question, it's just a really big concern.
I just want to know where the over budget is coming
Well,
from.
it's like her expenses were higher than her revenue. I mean, yeah, so she was over budget.
Yeah.
So she
So-
spent more money than they had.
This was actually our budget proposal for 2026. We run on a shoestring budget because we are a nonprofit. We try and spend all of our money we can. That being said, we rely on private donors, we rely on fundraising, we rely on sponsorships, we have business members. The town is 32% of what we raise. And yes, those numbers that I just showed you, our budget tends to be in the red. We do close our year out and we're fine. We're never coming back to the town asking for more funds. If we run out of funds, that's kind of on us. Like we have so many other sources of fundraising and sponsorship that we rely on. And just to be clear, that $200,000 that our economic development director was able to secure in grant funding is not shown in that revenue. Because the revenue that is being shown there is the revenue that we are taking in. That $200,000 was appointed to the town, but it was applied for by the economic development director because he had grant application background. So but those funds are not allocated there. So I just want to make sure you know that the town is also receiving received $200,000 from the efforts of the economic development director that the town pays their tuition or their salary for.
Yep. It looks like Mike has a hand up and then Amy, I see you.
I just want to respond with comments. If this was tens of thousands of dollars, I'd be a lot more concerned. RW has had a lot of staff changes within the last 12 months. Because, especially losing their economic director, in October, November. I'm sure that has an effect upon revenue. So if this was, there was a $50,000 discrepancy, I'd be concerned. But it's a couple of $1,000s, and I think they're doing they're returning a good investment to the community.
Amy, I see your hand.
Yeah, I want to, when you say 32%, that's nearly 1/3 of the operating funds comes from the town, which those activities carry direct fiscal implications for residents. We're talking about current operating funds. My commentary was to to include operating funds, but it's also to expand to total cost of ownership. So when someone goes to apply for a grant that will create something that is well-intended, perhaps well-needed, however, the townspeople in which those decisions about fiscal requirement come in, we do not have that opportunity. So therefore, Mike, to your comment, I hear you talking about 90 something thousand in this particular budget year. And I do have concerns with some of that, but I'm also honestly, my concerns are more of the strategic level. They're more of the level that says, well, this 90,000 is going to get us this, which is they're going to go and pursue initiatives that are, as they've stated, for the benefit of Waterbury. However, Waterbury residents in totality do not have a venue in which to weigh in on, one, are these priorities for our town? Two, do they want to have these pursued? And ultimately, three, do we fully understand the cost of these initiatives? So when I hear we have feedback from townspeople that say, let's focus on, hey, our property taxes are getting out of hand. Hey, we have flood resiliencies issues. I continue to question, why are we shifting accountability for decision-making to a nonprofit? I don't care who they are. In this particular case, it's Revitalizing Waterbury. But that's a really risky game when you start to shift responsibility of decision-making that has ultimate implications to all taxpayers.
Thanks, Amy. Do any other board members have questions or comments? So I want to say, I hear you and I appreciate you, Amy. I would say what we have right now is the town does fund this $96,650. It will be on the warning at town meeting and folks are welcome to weigh in on it. It is for some, but not all of the services that Revitalizing Waterbury offers. So speaking from my own experience, we have received additional requests for Revitalizing Waterbury for things like the Jack's Alley project, which the town did fund. That was a separate and distinct request that the select board at the time evaluated and chose to fund. So whatever the process may be, I have served on the select board while we have said no to grant applications from Revitalizing Waterbury and others. And so that process certainly can be improved. And I think it's a point the board is hearing and receiving. For right now, we wanted to be clear about this funding request for economic development services, marketing promotion, and again, the venue to weigh in is your elected select board representatives and town meeting. I will note that the town of Waterbury also has a number of private nonprofit organizations in the budget besides Revitalizing Waterbury, like the Waterbury Area Senior Center, the Central Vermont Regional Planning Commission, the Central Vermont Economic Development Corporation, where we are proposing to voters a budget that sends money to these organizations. So again, it's not to say we have a perfectly aligned process to do so. It varies what that organization looks like, but I just want to be upfront that this is not the only organization where this is the case. Does anyone else have questions or comments on this topic? Kane?
Yeah, I'm gonna jump on this bandwagon here. Amy, I've been quietly critical of RW my entire time on the board, and I'm going to find myself coming to its defense here. There's so much that RW does that we do not have the capacity to do at the town level. And the small amount of funding that we give them every year, that I have voted for every year, that I have been on this board, and to my knowledge, those votes have been unanimous every year to put that funding in our budget, goes to show the importance of this organization to the town of Waterbury. Though I'm critical, I don't disagree with the fact that we need to fund, in part, their operations. Some of the questions you have asked the representatives of Revitalizing Waterbury, I have also asked about the Conservation Commission, all right? Mudslinging toward an organization that spends all of its time trying to make Waterbury a better place is not something I think anyone on this board wants to hear.
Moving along, do we have any other questions or comments about the topic at hand? All right, I'm gonna move us into town meeting, which is the venue in which, in addition to tonight, all of this can be discussed. Thank you, Lindsay, for joining us and for the information. If someone wants to get Roger from the hall, we need to.
have to?
Thank you so much.
I didn't give you an opportunity. Thank you.
Not at this time, I can't, so.
Okay. Select board members Woody and Rebecca Ellis, you're here and your name is on this, so if you want a copy, I have a draft of the proposed motions for town meeting day. This is the fun exercise where we review the warning, which is already published and out in the world. So good, here's one. I have one extra copy if anyone else in the audience would like one. The warning, most of the materials. So what we are looking at is the warning for that annual meeting of the town of Waterbury. Again, this is already out warned in the world at our locations. It's posted on the town website. But when we get there, this is the part where we've gone through. Most of this was copy paste from last year with a few modifications, noting we should get a legal review. We haven't yet. I think there's 2 articles that we didn't have the exact same thing last year. But we've normally gone around on the select board and reviewed who's gonna say what. And I didn't think to invite you, but if you have anything you want to add, Rebecca. What? The fire truck is in.
I did want to add that I went to the BLCT training for town moderators and have some good news about some of the long articles, Article 15 and Article 16. They said it was okay when you get to that article for me to say, we will now consider Article 15. What is your pleasure? No, I didn't read the whole thing. And then one of you can say, I move the article, stop. And then I can take a second, and then I would read the whole thing. So we can make it a little shorter with less good things.
Just one reading.
I was skeptical, that's what they said you could do. So I would suggest that when we get to it for Article 15 and Article 16.
And
You don't want to read it 3 times?
I will be reading it twice, but it just allows the public not to listen to it 4 times.
And for those without it in front of them, Article 15 is the local option tax. We did choose to list a variety of the purchases, and Article 16 was funding requests from outside organizations, $1,000 and under. We lowered that threshold to everything over $1,000 is a standalone article, which is why we have 30 articles on the town meeting warning. So thank you. It is great news because the needing to say it multiple times was a lot. So notwithstanding that she's sitting here at the table, the first article is to elect Rebecca Ellis as moderator. Is there a select board member who would like to make that motion? All right, Roger with a quick hand. Articles 2, 3, and 4 are the Australian ballot voting, including the bond vote as previously discussed here tonight. Article 5 is to act on the reports of several town officers with the exception of claims for fees of compensation. I will say in general, this is kind of like, hello, here's your town report. Do you want to ask questions? So it's one where you could potentially get a lot of follow-up questions if we tee it up right. I know those should used to always emphasize that. It's an opportunity to ask about the things we reported on doing in the year. Is there anyone who would like to do Article 5? All right, Mike Bard for Article 5. Article 6 is the compensation, which is printed same page as last year on page 8 in the town report. Traditionally, we have asked someone who is not on the select board to make the motion. Oh, you laughed. I think Skip Landers volunteered, so we'll pencil him in pending confirmation for Article 6.
I'll take 7.
Okay, Tori is saying she is taking Article 7, which is the tax dates. Article 8 is the tax.
The time?
Penalties.
Oh. Yeah, I'll take it.
Okay. I'll take 9. Okay. So let's see, Kane.
So, can I just step in and just say,
Please.
if you take the article, yeah, I will then, after it's moved, seconded, and I've read it, I will say, would you like to speak to the article, Ms. Taravella? So I'll coordinate in preparation.
I would volunteer to take 9, but you're also welcome to. It is the budget, so
oh, you know what?
it's the whole budget.
The whole budget.
Okay,
Are you still on playing?
I will
Yeah,
follow.
I just told Alyssa I should not do the budget since of the library thing, so.
Okay, I am happy to do
Sneaking
Article
back that
9.
office.
I am happy to hang out with Bill Woodruff and Bill Chevrolet and review all of the financials and do my best to have answers to as much as we can, but also the whole board can do it. I will say in general, like, right, it's our budget that we all prepared, so if other people want to answer questions, but I'm certainly happy to speak to it and speak to its not flowery length, because we shortened it this year. And noting it's in parentheses, but obviously we don't have the tax rate in this motion anymore, but that will be like one of the things to speak to is we updated the format based on legal counsel, and so we're not making a motion with the tax rate, but based on our best guess as demonstrated on page X, this is what you would anticipate. So,
I'll take 10.
okay, 10 is natural disaster reserve fund. Kane says that. Or I should say creating the fund. Do you also
Creating.
want to do reserving or funding it?
Sure.
I thought you were gonna take the housing one.
Oh, yeah. Man, I don't wanna take 3 in a row.
I'll do
That's selfish.
natural disaster if you do housing.
All right,
Not
all right.
Roger.
Yeah, trade. Yeah.
Mike one.
All right, so Tori, you're taking 10 and 11. Is that what I heard?
Yeah.
And then, so I'm 12 and 13,
If you're willing and if Mike and Roger are amenable.
gentlemen.
Okay.
All right, looks like fire.
Which means, yeah, you're not getting fire truck, so, Mike. Yeah.
That one, I'm a
Mike,
good
Roger.
fire truck guy.
There you
Yep,
go.
it's, you know,
Oh, thank you. Okay, so Article 14, Mike, on fire trucks. Article 15, local option tax.
Roger, we're all looking.
I'll do it if no one wants to, but yeah, I was reviewing the content, I believe.
Sure.
Okay, Roger, Article 15, noting the note from our moderator that you might have to read less. And then the select board has not traditionally done 16 through 30. We have had other community members from the relevant organizations make those motions. Including 16?
I included you.
I know, I can try and pull up last year's, but I don't think I think maybe John Walter did it, to be perfectly frank. But
I think John only stood when like someone else wouldn't, and he would stand up and read it.
yeah, I mean, if a select board member wants to, I will say I don't personally see the distinction between doing 16 and not doing 17 on, but that's just me.
Yeah, I mean. Hey, Billy, you wanna read an article for us?
Evan, you're gonna be there.
Okay, we can say pending confirmation for tonight.
Yeah,
if
that's fine.
The board thinks others. Is there other pieces anyone wants to review? There will be lunch. The town is paying for lunch from the Waterbury Senior Center. Free donations to the senior center accepted. So that will be available if it becomes a longer meeting. Our former town clerk, Karen Petrovich, has agreed to do notes because she knows everyone in town and can do minutes, which Carol Dawes is not a Waterbury native and does not know it. So, I was gonna send her this draft with the assignments we've made so that she can work on skeletonining the minutes. I would need to confirm childcare, but did not before this meeting, but I think we hope to have childcare offered by the children's room if they are willing.
We have a knockout time for lunch if we have to split the meeting into.
I kind of play it by
Just
ear a
play
little
it by
bit to
ear.
see how close we are.
Right.
Cause once
to
we
the end,
break
'cause
for lunch, if we
We
only
don't wanna
have.
have lunch at 2:30 in the afternoon.
Yeah, no, if it's gonna go that long, I'll obviously break earlier, but I'd like to, like, if we're gonna end by 12:30, then I'm gonna
Right.
push to the end.
Right. Pretty low.
Just seeing that, the Waterbury, Vermont 250 Planning Committee.
Oh, you're on the committee.
I'm on the committee, so I would.
Oh, you're both on the committee? All
All right.
right, Tori, you wanna rock, paper, scissors?
Okay.
Or I can do it if you do it. with others.
All right,
Nope.
that's mine.
You lost.
Yeah.
Haynes doing LOT. Okay.
I love deciding.
Alrighty. With that update, Is there any other questions, concerns, or logistics we'd like to review for town meeting? I will note that normally there's been folks who go the day before to help with setup. That's usually through the BCA and town clerk. I don't have the details yet, but we can share them. Cody took his glasses off, so I'm looking at him to
Yeah,
see if
no.
he had something to say.
We're planning on helping set up.
Is that day before or like afternoon on the day?
Yeah, afternoon-ish, 3:30. Will there be school the day before? No. No.
No school.
Great. Any other questions or comments or things the board needs to review? I did note, I think we don't, in addition to the budget, I'm just knowing there was some things like the capital budgets that didn't get printed in this that I will try and see if we can have copies available for reference. Oh, yeah, no, they were, I don't think they were done and formatted by the deadline, but like we had the request today about the bond numbers and different things, so I'm just noting that. If anyone else wants to dive into financials, that'll be some of the prep I'm thinking about. Any other items on this? All righty, I will move on to our next thing.
If you have any questions, feel free to.
Yeah, and then you're right, in general, actually, are you comfortable with folks going to now if they wanna make a motion and wanna know
Yes.
how to format it? We
Yeah.
often offer that.
Yeah, definitely, people, you as well as the public should feel free to come to me to ask for a format, how do you make a motion, what should it say? I'll try to put something on from Porch Forum as well, so that people know they can face with me.
Great.
And if people don't touch base with me beforehand, I'm also there at town meeting and we can always take a 5-minute break and I can write things out with people.
Great.
All right.
Roger had a
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, in addition to all the articles, there's the Keith Wallace Award
Yeah.
and, the announcement about the, town meeting,
Study committee.
Study
Mhm.
committee. You're gonna interject those into the agenda.
Yeah, usually we have like also the reports from the state legislators, usually around
Yeah.
9:30.
Uh-huh.
And then we do Keith Wallace, usually around 10:30.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. Do you know when you're thinking about doing the, announcement about the, town meeting study committee?
no, but do you have a suggestion?
Sometime in the middle there.
Okay. I'll look through the order.
Yeah.
And see.
It might make sense right after the candidates, not the candidates, but our representatives, think they're. The thing that Roger could maybe talk about. that.
We have.
We've got somebody else, yeah.
We have someone else,
Another
yeah.
member of the committee. That's
Yeah.
what we can do it.
Okay,
All right,
thanks.
okay.
Thank you for
Great.
coming in and thanks for being willing to be moderator and go to training and save us one reading of the multi-article.
I'm just saying before.
4 readings.
2 readings.
Thank you.
Thanks, Peter, for giving me the time off to do this stuff.
Awesome. Any other town meeting items to review? Warnings on the town website, thanks to municipal staff, and I think that's it. Polls are open 7 AM to 7 PM. You can request an early ballot via the town clerk's office if you would like to do that. All right, any other quick things? All right, we'll move us to our next item. Consider adjustments to the Town of Waterbury employee handbook regarding holidays.
Question,
Kate,
is this just to realign it with the CBA?
I believe so, yes.
so. No, I was gonna ask if Woody wanted to, and I can screen share either the CBA or the employee handbook. They're both linked for this website, but that is the crux of this item is that there was a disparity between the collective bargaining agreement we had and what was previously in the employee handbook, so I was gonna turn it over to Woody for a recommendation.
Yeah, so I would like to recommend, that with regards to holidays for the employees, that we be consistent with the CBA, which now would mean that the employees would be afforded President's Day, the choice of Juneteenth or Indigenous Persons Day, and one additional floating holiday, that would make the personnel policy and the CBA consistent on that matter.
As this is employee oriented, I'm gonna pull a Roger and step into the hallway.
All right, Kane is going into the hallway for this one. Other questions, comments from the board, Mike?
Because all of us select board members are technically employees, because we receive stipends. So we are employees, you know, even though we're elected. But will this handbook memorialize that we will have select board meetings off of those holidays to allow people to observe?
Why don't I just pull up the employee handbook? I do have to say, I think there's pieces of this that are for full and part-time employees. So
Right.
notwithstanding your comment, we're not full or
I know
part-time
we're not full or part-time, but we are paid by stipend.
Yeah.
No, but
No, go ahead.
it does affect employees.
Right.
Cheryl, myself, should you choose to meet on President's Day.
And that's what we have heard loud and clear from the public, that they wish not to have like select board meetings.
I misunderstood, yeah.
Right, I think though, anything governing the select board is not appropriately placed into the employee handbook, in my
Right.
opinion, because we are technically also the overseeing bosses of all the town employees, so I don't think that would mesh, so I don't think that's part of the proposed changes.
The only thing I'm saying, maybe there should be a comment that we're select board and other meetings will not be held on those days.
Yes, thank you, Mike. I misunderstood your comment, and this came up because someone asked me why today was a special meeting. And I just will note in general, at the first organizational meeting of the year, we, the select board, created a regular meeting date. We said first and third Mondays
Right.
at 6:30. We then held a meeting on Labor Day and received quite a lot of feedback
We had
about
several days that we held.
holding said meeting on Labor Day. So notwithstanding that, we modified moving forward, and this is our second special meeting, so as to not be on a holiday Monday. But in my mind, there's two things you're pointing out. So one, this is the handbook employee holiday. So Woody is recommending 3 changes, 2 additions. So adding President's Day, which was not in here, updating Indigenous Peoples' Day to be Indigenous Peoples' Day or Juneteenth. And also adding 1 floating holiday to match the collective bargaining agreement. So those are the changes. To your point, below, we'll note that folks who need to work on a holiday receive different rates of pay, so there would be implications. But I will just note the regular meeting dates of boards is not a this juncture conversation, though it is something other boards could create a standard policy around moving them and things like
And
that.
that was a concern. I just wanted that to, with employees that might be affected, that would be something.
Yeah. And I will say town meeting day, I don't know in this, but specifically in the collective bargaining agreement, there is a separate rate of pay for employees who must work town meeting day, like our town clerk staff. Who obviously it is a holiday and folks need to work, and that's acknowledged. Tori and then Roger.
I think Roger's section.
Okay, Roger and then Tori.
I move to amend the employee handbook to coincide with the collective bargaining agreement.
Maybe we should have gone first.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Roger, second by Mike. Tori?
Respectfully, I disagree with the recommendation as it pertains to the floating holiday. I have no problem updating the paid holidays list so it matches. I think it makes more sense, like cohesively for the employees and the people managing them. That being said, the floating holiday is specifically under the collective bargaining agreement, literally titled Floating Holiday / Waterbury Union Employees Appreciation Day. So I feel like giving the floating holiday to non-union position employees kind of takes away the intent of what they tried to accomplish in celebrating the formation of that union and giving themselves kind of that extra little perk. So with the way that the motion is currently on the table, I would vote no, because I would not want to include the floating holiday into the update to the employee.
I thought I mentioned religious holidays as well, at CBA.
Yeah, so the section 2 CBA is titled Floating Holiday / Waterbury Union Employees Appreciation Day, : In addition, all employees shall be allowed one floating holiday per fiscal year for religious, social, or personal need. But the intent behind that section was a celebration. They honestly wanted a union picnic day. But it was a celebration of the union coming into existence for the town of Waterbury.
I'm sorry to folks online, I think I'm sharing not the hydrological cornfield right now, but my bad.
Getting to be about the same thing. No, I'm just, wanting clarification on that. Are you saying that, only unionized, union personnel should get that floating holiday?
Union position personnel. So whether they join the union or not, they're a union position, they would be controlled by the bargaining agreement, so they would be getting this holiday.
Yeah.
Management hypothetically would not. That would be the difference. So sorry to management.
I respectfully disagree. I think the managers work goddamn hard, and I think they deserve it. As much as the rank and file people, not to diminish any rank and file people, but I think they both deserve that floater. I think it's reasonable.
That's fair. I'm just expressing what the intent was when we were bargaining around that floating holiday and trying to respect what I felt the intent was of it. And also respectfully, management gets quite a few other perks. So, that's where I'm at. You don't need me to vote yes. You can listen on your side.
Well,
Yeah, I mean, I will say, I'm not speaking for myself, I will speak for the manager of the highway department. Should everybody choose a floater to take off, she will be the only one working in the department that day, and whether that's fair or just or safe, I don't know. Yeah, should that floater happen on a day when something has to be done? I don't know.
I'm sticking with my, proposal.
I agree. I respect the process and the intent. I have no problem with an extra floating holiday for management.
Many companies have floaters, and I know maybe in the negotiations, it was maybe relayed a little different. I just think all staff deserve that, you know, if they have a religious holiday or something, let them have it.
And they have the benefit of, giving this floating holiday to management.
Right.
Right. Is there further questions, comments, or discussion on this item? The motion is all three changes, including the additional floating holiday, President's Day, and Indigenous people or Juneteenth. Further discussion? Right. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Nay. Sorry, is opposed. Anyone abstaining? Kane is outside the room and has been for this whole conversation. All right. Any further discussion on this matter? All right, I will move to our next one on zoning enforcement, which no one would want to miss, and let me stop my share.
Standards.
Oh, thank you, which also no one would ever want to miss. Okay, Woody, can I toss this one to you immediately? What is updating with the bridge standards?
Sure, so V-Trans usually sends us the updated municipal roads and bridge standards yearly for the board to sign off on. Signing off on this allows us to get grant money and other things like that. And it's a good practice to meet standards, obviously. And there's only one change, as I understand it, from the standards you adopted the last time you adopted these, and that's a change for the sizing of cross culverts from 15-inch minimum to 18-inch minimum. So it's a minor change.
Great, and I think board members have a copy of the letter from ANR and from the Agency of Natural Resources and Agency of Transportation outlining this. I have a hard copy we can sign should we choose to adopt this. For
My question is, do we have any concerns about our ability to meet these standards and funding of meeting them?
No, Celia, the road foreman, routinely usually upsizes and uses an 18-inch anyway, so. And our standards, we have no problem.
Other questions or comments on this topic?
I move to adopt municipal bridge standards.
Second.
Motion by Tori, second by Kane. Is there any further discussion? Right, all those in favor? Oh, Amy has a question. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm sorry. I'm not in a position where I can read documents, so I just wanted to make sure I understand. What is the change that you said, Woody? Were you reducing culvert size or
No.
increasing it?
The increasing cross culverts have to be a minimum of 18 inches. The old standard was a minimum of 15 inches.
Great, and Tori made a motion to approve this. Was there a second? Second by Kane. I will note that the agenda item says bridge standards. The form says town road and bridge standards, and I just want to make sure the board is comfortable with that. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, is there any further discussion or question? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Right, I'm circulating this hard copy for signature at the bottom, and I have to sign it first, and I can't speak while I sign. So. Now we are on to the next agenda item,
This is your bread, buddy.
which is to conversation about zoning enforcement, and I'll turn it over to Mike Bard, who asked for this agenda item.
This is for everyone who served on the ERB, Martha, Harry. I don't know if we have any, Cheryl, who's the current zoning administrator. This has bugged everyone on the DRB. We do all this work to issue permits, and we have little to no follow-up on permits. Especially when there's issues that there are clear violations. And we do have a standard for violations in our zoning law, so it's not like we don't have. We pass them out.
Keep doing your bit. You can sign it whenever you're ready.
We do have a clear set of standards for zoning, violations. I think it's really behoove, I'm not saying people have very minor violations, but I'm sure Cheryl could say we have some more major violations. Maybe could you elaborate a few of the issues that, I know there's one that was.
I did tell Cheryl, quote, Mike wants this on the agenda. You're not expected or required to respond. So I'm, as the select board chair,
I don't
just saying
even know
that.
where there's a sand pile by Guptill Road that's supposedly a big issue.
There,
I can't even find it.
there are an array.
Okay, sorry. Cheryl Casey, minute taker, and also
Zoning administrator, yes,
Thanks.
sorry, I forgot to state state my name for the minutes. There are certainly there is a laundry list of zoning violations. Some of them are minor, some of them are far more significant. I am only presently apprised, I am collecting that laundry list. The DRB members are sending them to me as they notice them or are reminded of one that they have seen. And so whatever has previously been the approach by any of my predecessors, my position is that, yeah, it would be great to conduct enforcement. But there is the small matter of number of hours in the day. And that I am a department of one. And that therein lies it will take a good deal of time to even make inroads on the significant violations, but I have started. There we go.
That's a good plus, but I do think that the citizens, for those of us who follow
rules and regulations. It's an insult to us that we do that when there are especially significant folks with significant violations. Mark, you want to interject?
Can I say something?
Sure.
I actually feel pretty strongly about it too. Martha Staskis. On the planning commission, the planning commission did not interview or hire Cheryl, so, give her a pass. But I wanna say that we were responsible for making a recommendation to the select board for both Neil and, Mike Bishop. And I just wanna say, we spent quite a bit of time during the interview process stressing the importance of enforcement. And, you know, I understand prior to Cheryl, prior to Mike too, the zoning administrator didn't really have a boss, if you will. And so I would, encourage that their boss has to be responsible for making sure that enforcement is applied, because it was definitely discussed. Now, as again, it's not with Cheryl, but it has been discussed in the past. Neil knows that the planning commission felt very strongly about in making a recommendation to the select board for the position. We asked them how they would go about enforcement, what methodologies they would use, how they would approach a neighbor or a landowner. Can we work together when, you know, elevating a process of elevating a serious offense? So I just want to go on the record that the planning commission, for all the years that I've been on it, has, and when we have interviewed a zoning administrator, it has been a top priority. So I don't know if it's been applied.
Thanks, Martha. Tori has a comment, and I'll just note that, the planning commission had to recommend zoning administrators until we had a municipal charter. Just in case anyone's wondering about the other behind the scenes, so they're now under the municipal administrator. Tori?
I don't know who's capable of answering this question, Mark, I need to come back up, but, I guess my question is, it sounds like there's not the capacity right now by the zoning administrator to go and enforce those. Is there a way for us to appoint like a specific member of the DRB to do it? Like, what's the background on who counts as an administrative officer of the town? Like, what? I don't know if anybody has that answer.
We got all this money in here for a sheriff.
Well, and the thing is like, you know, it sounds like that person could almost like make their salary with the, if they actually enforce the violations and collect.
So Martha came up and Harry has a hand up, and Woody and Cheryl are here, so there's ample municipal staff and volunteers who I'm sure can weigh in on this. I just want to say for the record of like, in the past, things select boards have done and things future select boards could do is increase the legal budget for the zoning department, so that prior to doing it, we did that. We added $10,000 extra last year specifically for this. We have not gone so far as to recommend hiring additional staff, but I'm just noting in this capacity conversation, things the select board is involved in. Day-to-day management is not a select board responsibility, it's a management responsibility and has been raised here. So I just feel like I want to say those things, Martha and then Harry.
Well, I think what I was trying to convey before was that there's phases. So for example, every permit that's issued could have the rules of enforcement or the results of enforcement issued with the permit. I mean, it's sort of an education process as well. And that's just small scale and that doesn't take a lot of hours. But, so then people have been warned. I mean, and all the permits that were issued when I was on the DRB were, you know, you're responsible. It's the last condition of the permit was you're responsible to what you've testified to, et cetera, et cetera. So you're building the foundation and you're making the awareness of the fact that there could be. Now, you know, if we have the reputation that we don't enforce, we have to change that attitude.
Right, I'm just noting that, I guess, it looks like the offender needs to get 7 days notice that a violation exists. So that's, I can see where that's a time. So.
Not really. I mean, it's either an email, a phone call, or a letter. I mean, I know that takes time,
By hand or certified mail.
Okay.
I know.
Okay, so noting we don't have that
Yeah.
info right now,
Yeah.
is there someone who
Sorry.
definitively
Thank
has the answer of if there can be other administrative officers? And Harry, you're next.
Thank you. So I think there are some things that are more important than others. One of the things that we note, since we have, adopted the, phase one zoning revisions for everything, I think, south of 95 or 89, right? We don't get a lot of, we don't see a lot of stuff anymore. I think that general rule was kind of structured to convey more authority to staff and the zoning director. Some things we see that are crucially important. We see buildings getting constructed in floodplains without the flood relief ones. Okay, that's a FEMA audit. Next time they're questioning things like, does it make sense? They have, I've experienced it, they have the ability to go to your last 5 floodplain projects and they go out and they look to see if you're complying with the flood insurance program rules. I think I see 3 relatively new structures out on Route 2 out my way by Forest Field. I cannot from the street see any evidence of flood relief works. That can affect our ability to get flood insurance and FEMA funding for the next event. So those are more important. Enforcement is also very costly. We get it. Not everyone maybe rises up to the level of getting the town attorney involved and all of that. I'm pleased to hear that there may be some fine provisions. We know we have Cheryl coming on cold. She's just starting to really learn what it means to be a zoning administrator. There's been staff change in that position, more frequently than we would probably like. And I think we're dealing with some of the repercussions of the choice to empower that person with more capacities, but we haven't really been able to keep anybody in the job. The flood stuff, very important. We see junkyards getting created out that way. We see fill stuff going on. It's clear, right? One success that you guys helped with was getting the enclosure around the mechanical unit on the end of the woods. But think about what it took to get there. There's stuff going on, design review. Almost just like, it's not worth trying. This is not going to be actually implemented. And there's bake shop. In a sensitive corner, design review, what you see on Winooski Street looks nothing like what we approved. So.
Cheryl had her hand up next, and then I'll go to Mike, and I'll just know. It's tonight, it's 9:30, we've warned town meeting, it's 9:22, so I think this is good info gathering, clearly. Folks in the room and whoever's on the board, like, there's some real questions here, there's questions around national flood insurance and different things that I'm sure are worth looking into, but just want to ground us in what is actionable at this juncture, or recommendations for a future board. Cheryl, and then Mike.
I just want to note that I agree, and I hear the importance of enforcing what it is we have, permitted people to do, and to, be consistent with that. I agree with that. That is part of my approach to this job. And Tori's right. It is a capacity issue. The person in this role handles incoming permits, questions about permits, E911 addressing, and zoning enforcement. I didn't get to a single thing on my to-do list today because the nonstop inquiries coming in I spent all day answering permit questions. Not one of those things were on my to-do list. So it is a matter of capacity, not a matter of willingness or understanding of the significance of enforcement. I am on board with that. I'm good. I'm good with that. It is just, I am feeling like I have a pretty good handle on the job. I feel, I know, with the exception of like some finer points, things are moving, but it is a capacity issue. No, and I don't feel, but I wanna be clear that I hear this and I am on board. And I can promise I am working my damnedest on it.
And many of our staff are.
Yeah, I'm not the only
targeting
one.
on different titles, right? So.
Yeah,
Um,
not the only one.
it's not something that we think can flip a switch, but it is, I think, important from a policy perspective for you guys to realize some of the challenges that these capacity issues create.
Yeah.
Thanks, Harry. Mike?
I'm not at all putting the blame on Cheryl.
No, and I,
I
defensive. I'm also like.
I understand it's a capacity thing. And my role with as liaison with the DRB, I hear time and time again, I want to try to help them, and I think what we need to do is put some legal money into our budget. I know I don't know, maybe we could maybe make an amendment to the budget this year, to do some enforcement, because I think a lot of people, if they knew some of the things Aaron was saying, I don't think they would be very happy. And this is bringing that out. And I think we need to address the real serious things and, I don't know, maybe change the enforcement where part of the enforcement, legal fees get passed down to the offender.
You can't do that, sorry.
Okay, so for tonight, I'm hearing that there's interest in this. I'm gonna encourage us to ask our interim municipal manager and zoning staff to talk about what, if any.
It's your problem.
Yeah, congrats. Oh, look, he's actually taking a note.
Well, I was gonna suggest that we define the problem, see how big it is, see what it.
To have a more grounded conversation in current status solutions. Maybe there's some low hanging fruit. Maybe there is the ability to repurpose. I'm noting, we had some local option tax funding for some of these grant projects that maybe if they're gonna be covered by other things, we could repurpose. There is some funding in planning zoning, so look at what might that cover currently, and report back. I would say this and the sidewalk near Bridge 36 are first on the list for the new select board. So I'm creating a parking lot of things that, again, will be after town meeting, but yes, and we'll be sure to tell them to give you a call if they're curious. Any other last comments to get in tonight on this? All right, speaking of zoning, next agenda item, consider waiving a zoning fee for a FEMA buyout. Woody, can I toss this one to you too?
Sure, so I can't, it's either 36 or 40, I can't remember.
36.
36 Union Street. FEMA buyout, we own the property now. There's, I believe Cheryl can correct me, $165 fee to tear the building down. I would ask, since we. Permit fee, yeah. I would ask it, since we would be paying the fee to ourselves, perhaps we could waive it. FEMA seems to think it's a big deal and it might slow the project down.
FEMA's front doors are locked right now.
I said, this is gonna slow you up $165, and they said yes.
Not all the other things that are slowing them up.
I think I'm on the national waive the zoning fee.
Second.
All right, Mike made the motion, Tori seconded it to waive the permit fee for the FEMA buyout at 36 Union Street. Is there any further questions or follow-up? Both Roger and Kane looked excited, but. All right, any further discussion on this? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Next up is consider employment agreements. Woody has been kind enough to step in to serve as our interim manager, and I do think as the board who asked him to do that, we owe him some next steps in terms of having something slightly finalized. I didn't put an executive session on. I think we could do a 5-minute executive session for personnel and then come back to make a motion if that's amenable to the board.
Sure, I move to find that premature knowledge of employment matters would place the town at significant disadvantage.
Is there a second? Motion by Tori, second by Kane. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right.
I move to enter into executive session with the town manager to discuss employment matters.
We'll be like 5 minutes and we are gonna come back for updates. I really just didn't think it through at the time.
These employments, union related,
Yeah, I was gonna say non-union related info.
non-union related employment for clarification.
All right, all those in favor, please say aye. Folks can stay, we're literally just. The select board and intermunicipal manager are out of executive session we were here at 9:35, but it's now 9:36. Here comes Cheryl. It's fine, Tori's making one of the motions, so we're gonna wait for her. To resume.
I needed to take that out.
Thank you all for your patience. Are you still recording?
Yeah. I didn't touch it.
It's over. One failure is not good.
That reminds me, I need to follow up with you about one of those enforcement things.
Yeah, I reached out to that, I didn't,
Did or didn't? Okay.
but he, yeah. You're ahead of one there, I thought it was all, I didn't.
Sorry. All right, we are back out of executive session and I will just say this is mostly to formalize work we have already done. We just have Woody is serving as our interim municipal manager and as the board who appointed him, as I said before. We just wanted to formalize that. So does someone have a motion?
I move to, oh, I already forgot what it is. I move to accept the proposal from EFUD in regards to Bill Woodruff's salary,
While serving as interim manager.
while serving as interim manager. Second.
All right, is there any further discussion? Right,
To really say that it's $1,200 and we're gonna be sharing it with you, but.
We're saying it now.
Everybody's public knowledge.
yep, stated for public information. Thank you.
Your discussion.
Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I assume it's right.
Oh, yes, yeah, thank you. Retroactive to when he began the role. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, we are approved.
Can I just, I'm sorry, I missed the details information.
The discussion included the fact that it was for $12,000.
$1,200.
$1,200.
Go Woody.
Whoa. All right.
To be sure to be. Fine.
So
Okay.
just, yes, again, EFUD approved this at their meeting on Wednesday. It's an increase. Bill Woodruff is the interim for both municipalities. And we will divide it between the two municipalities appropriately for the increased pay. Is that good?
Yeah.
Would someone also make a motion to authorize me as select board chair to sign an employment agreement to that effect?
So
With
moved.
Bill Woodruff?
Second.
Motion by Tori, seconded by Kane. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? And again, just so that there's something in writing saying, while you're interim manager, this is what you're doing. Again, everything we agreed to, that he's not interested in being permanent manager, but is doing a favor doing this. Yeah,
She made an amendment.
No, it was a discussion.
We were in discussion about the original.
I think she did specify the amount for public knowledge.
Yeah.
And then a second,
Part of the discussion.
second motion was made for the final vote.
No, I never made an actual motion. It was just public
Well, I-
knowledge discussion.
It was seconded.
I have a
Right, it
motion.
was seconded.
Yeah.
It was voted on.
Oh, it was.
And then I
Yeah.
asked
Oh, all right.
to go back.
Got
for
lost in
Tori,
translation.
yeah, I needed Tori to repeat what she said before the vote happened. And just
Got it.
Let's all yell loudly. Okay,
Okay.
the other last thing we had under this is that we also earlier appointed folks to serve as treasurer. Previously, that had been a staff role. And they asked if they could be compensated, which seems reasonable. So I wanted a motion to approve doing that just as a formality.
I move to approve the total $2,000 budget to compensate the treasurers through town meeting day to be administered by our interim town manager.
Second.
Motion by Tori, second by Kane. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, thank you all. Again, goal to just have everything in good writing, while we are here. All right, our next item is select board and interim municipal manager updates. Any select board members who would like to start? Sure, Tori.
Okay, two things. One, there is a Stowe Land Trust and Waterbury Lands Initiative is hosting a community forum on land conservation in Waterbury on Wednesday, March 11th from 6:30 to 8 o'clock at the Grange Hall Cultural Center. They would like to hear directly from the community. Please go and attend and give them your input if you are interested in doing so. The next thing is I want to take a moment at our last, or potentially last regular meeting to thank the voters of Waterbury for giving me the opportunity to serve on the select board this past year. I truly enjoyed my experience and learned a lot during my time on the board. Sadly, as you all know, I will not be running again for the next year due to personal matters that need my attention in the next year. It wouldn't be fair to try and juggle both. It's my hope that once I have addressed these personal matters, that the people of Waterbury will give me the privilege of serving them in public office again in the future. I want to thank all my fellow board members, members of the public, and town employees that helped me this past year and offered their input. I wish the future select board success and encourage everyone to give them grace, respect, appreciation in their interactions with these individuals as they navigate their time. So.
Thanks for. Mike, you're next.
I kind of, ditto Tori's. But I have 22 years of service in the community. And I'm very proud of that. I have had different roles, from being on the Conservation Commission, being their chair, being on the DRB, which I at least got today, some traction on zoning enforcement. And I, with the 7 years here, when Crispy ends, said, you said you might be interested in serving on the select board. And I said, at first I couldn't, because I felt this. Yeah. He's responsible. I blame. He's responsible. But it's the 7 years I didn't go on the select board maybe earlier, because I always felt there was a conflict for, I had a job program director at USDA Rural Development. And I believe very strongly about conflict of interest and, how it affects the community. One of my big once I'm away, I will be going, I'll be like Crispy ends, sitting in the bleachers. But one of my goals is trying to work with Vermont League of Cities and Towns to try to amend the open meeting law. I do strongly believe that we could do better. It's like, if the three of us want to discuss something, we can't do that. We have to have a meeting and stuff like that, being warned. I think that's ridiculous. I know as a program director, I couldn't have gotten my job done if I had to meet those kind of standards. So that's one of the big things I'm gonna work on. I'm not leaving. I may travel a little bit more, so I don't necessarily, I may not be at every one of these meetings, unlike Chris. Well, you mentioned deer season. But I treasure the relationships from Chris, starting with Chris, to all of you guys. It's really been a pleasure. We've had our ups and downs. I always say I'm a fiscal conservative, and I still am, but I do believe in common sense governance of our community. And I always want to see the best for Waterbury, because I think it's a really neat community. The only thing I don't like, and I don't like it about the whole state of Vermont, Vermont's becoming very unaffordable. And, I'm lucky I'm retired. I've done somewhat well in investments and stuff, so I'm not affected. But I think a lot of people in this community are really starting to hurt, and they're gonna hurt even more as tax. And I think we've been really good holding the line on taxes, but you gotta do something about the school taxes. I just think Waterbury is special and, you know, it's not like I'm leaving, I'm gonna be around here. I'll bug whoever the new select board is. I know among this group, it's only Roger, but. Roger,
me only one.
yeah, I know, it's very, to anyone who's not here, this is probably more for the camera. It's a very rewarding job, and as I always tell people, all the naysayers that always complain about everything that you do, I said, well, why don't you just run for select board? And you hear a real silence, you know, running and putting yourself out there, and especially in these times, is a real challenge, you know. And, you know, I have pretty thick skin, but some people, and I know they will go nameless, but they really get under, you know, I say, I'm here to do what I think the people want me to do, not what Mike Bard wants to do. I always feel we've got to do what's right for the community in spite of what our individual viewpoints are. So thank you all for the 22, I couldn't believe when I tallied it up, 22 years working, doing volunteer work. And please, don't give yourself a raise. You know, as much as I think you all deserve a lot of money, I think it's a dangerous precedent, because once we start raising every one of the town committees are gonna, you know, not that they're not valued, but I think when we go from a volunteer-based community to a paid-based community, I think it's a dangerous precedent. So thank you all. I know I'll see you all, so I won't hear them quite yet. Maybe on town meeting day.
Thanks, Mike. Kane?
All right, I guess if we're all getting leaving speeches.
I mean, you did give yours.
Yeah,
I did give mine, you know. All I'll say is when I arrived in Waterbury, I was living on a couch and I was cooking and didn't know if I was gonna be passing through, if I was gonna stay. And it's been 10 years since then. I struggled when I arrived here, and this community showed me a lot of love. And when I ran for office, I never expected to win. Just kind of wanted to be a thorn in Chris's side. I'm so sorry. But here we are 3 years later, and this community, I put a lot of trust in this community when I first got here, and this community put a lot of trust in me. And I hope that members of this community feel like I've delivered for them in my 3 years on this board. And my experience on this board has certainly taught me skills that I need for my new job. So I just want to thank everyone in Waterbury who participates in a democracy and participates in these meetings, even if we don't see eye to eye.
Beautiful. All right, Roger.
I wanted to thank all of you for all the work that you folks have put in. It's been very impressive. Enjoyed my time here. I may have more time here, still, we'll see. Yeah, we'll just, and for all of you that will suddenly have free time in March, the Community Volunteer Fair is March 28th. And go and sign up for all the wonderful things that are going on here in Waterbury.
Thanks, Roger. I'm looking forward to the last Housing Task Force member I'll be attending as a select board member on Thursday, so we'll have those updates before town meeting. And my closing pitch would be, please, everyone come to town meeting, because I am just excited to review all the work and engage with folks on that. And we'll just confirm I knew absolutely nothing about the town report and I'm quite embarrassed and touched, but just want to confirm I had no idea about it. That's all for me. Woody?
Well, if I had a I'm leaving speech, we'd be in trouble.
We've been in that year one.
No, I was very happy to be a part of naming the town report dedicated to Alyssa. The amount of work she does is incredible. I will say Cheryl rolled her eyes when I brought the dedication and cursive written to her and said, here you go. She rolls her eyes, said, no, you go type that up and get back to my desk and I will put it in the report. And, but yes, thank you all for all you do. You've done a lot of work. It'll go a long way. So.
Amy? You're not a select board member?
Yes,
full
I
manager?
know that I have been somebody who sat from afar, and although very involved and very committed, I do want to take a moment to make sure that those that are departing the select board understand that I deeply appreciate their service to the community as somebody who's a volunteer and doesn't get paid, and also I should say attends these select board meetings. I recognize that I have a limited view on what you folks need to do. So serving in municipal government, I know requires long hours. I also know it requires careful deliberation and a willingness to make difficult decisions in front of us, right? And that hasn't been easy. So I know we also may not have agreed on many issues, but at the end of the day, public service at the local level is very demanding and is more than often unappreciated. And I think that all of the times I've contributed feedback, most likely I have not yet started with the appreciation of your time. So I want to make sure that you're very clear that I do appreciate your time, your expertise, and your commitment. And I can hear that in everyone's advocacy, your commentary, and your proposals that you bring forward. And I really hope that you're able to continue to engage in this conversation, I guess, at the level of civic life. Maybe not in that particular role, but in a way that helps shape what our town looks like going forward. Because I do really believe that you have invested your time, interest, and energy into making Waterbury be the best it can be. I really do believe that. And it's easier for us as outsiders to look at things and assess what those products, those work products, those decisions are, and then criticize them. So I want you to know that.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank you.
Amy, I want you to keep criticizing your government.
You don't have to
Right.
worry about that, Mr. Kane. I do this for a living. But I just, from the bottom of my heart, $1,400 may be an appropriate fiscal conservative position, but I absolutely understand. I am somebody who has the Conservation Commission as well as sitting on these select board as well as planning commission meetings. So I know what investment looks and feels like.
Thanks, Amy. Chris now had his hand up, so now we have to do full roundtable. So go ahead, Chris.
Nobody knows better the lumps and bumps afforded to you when you're holding the select board position. And I just want to convey my condolences and appreciation for your efforts. I know full well what you have gone through and continue to go through, and problem with humans is large amount of us don't ever agree on the same thing, you know, and that's a difficult road to maneuver. So thanks again for your time, and won't be forgotten.
Thanks all, and thank you to everyone who comes to the meetings to participate and provide their feedback. We need to confirm if we're doing this again, so I will note in general for confirming next meeting dates. Per our regular meeting schedule, the first Monday in March is March 2nd. It is normally when I believe the school board is also doing their informational presentation. So in my time on the board, we have usually canceled that meeting the day before town meeting day, but I just wanted to confirm with the board if that was our desired outcome. Tori.
I move to cancel our upcoming meeting for March 2nd and instead encourage all of our wonderful community members to attend the school board meeting to learn how that side of it will affect their taxes.
Second.
Motion by Tori, second by Kane. Any further discussion? Mike?
I say we should go around and we'll have a round of whiskeys.
Is that your amendment?
No.
This is why you assume an open meeting law.
Let's select board.
Later.
Lively meetings.
All right, 15 minutes over. All right, we have a motion just on canceling the meeting and encouraging.
No
folks-
whiskey in the
and a
minutes.
second. What?
No whiskey in the minutes.
Yeah, no
No,
whiskey.
no,
That was-
Social gatherings
Little
can be
better.
coordinated outside of
Right,
this meeting.
right.
Is
You have a tavern.
all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, so we've canceled the Monday, March 2nd meeting. We hope to see everyone Tuesday, March 3rd at 9 a.m. I will say to select board members, it's great to be there by 8:30 at least if you can, so that we can get oriented and set up on the stage
Oh, yeah.
and all of that.
I move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Tori, second by Mike. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, we're joined at 9:56 PM. Thank you all.
Last meeting.